Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Steven Gervais and Friends podcast. I'm not alone today. I got my buddy Glick from the Nonsensical Nonsense podcast. But before I introduce him into this stream, I have one thing I'd like to say, and that is viewer discretion is always advised when I either go live or I have friends that come on here, because we like to talk a lot of nonsense. And sometimes it can be nonsensical nonsense. You get my drift. Also, if you haven't yet, please go like, subscribe, comment on the YouTube channel, as it does help us grow, and we appreciate it. And also go check out Glick and the guys on the Nonsensical Nonsense podcast, where today I'm talking with him. We're going to talk a bunch of nonsense. We're just going to make you guys probably like either subscribe to see what's going to happen next, or, either tell us we're idiots. All right. And here is the man of the hour, Glick.
The man of the hour. That's quite an intro, man. I appreciate that. What's going on with you, brother?
Not bad. How are you doing today?
It's Saturday. I'm alive and kicking, so.
I feel you. That's how I felt after the first week of college. It's just like, although all my classes are online, it's just like, oh, fucking thank God.
How have you ever attended college in class as opposed to doing it online?
No.
Oh, okay. I've always wondered what the comparison is. Somebody who's done both online and in class, if online was easier or if actually going to an actual class was easier.
I mean, I like doing it online because me and my wife share a car, so then it's not like I have to bring her to work and then all of a sudden come back and then go to school. So it's like, and I was supposed to have one class at school on Tuesdays. Well, then that class got canceled, so I was just like, okay, that was kind of dodging a bullet there.
Yeah.
And yeah, just been dealing with all this podcast and bullshit.
Man, I tell you what, it consumes a lot of your life. I joke around. I joke around and I tell everybody, I have a full-time job. I'm a full-time dad. I have my fiance and I live together, so we got that stuff going on. And then outside of that, my second job, and I probably work more on the podcast than I do in the other three areas combined.
Yeah.
Trying to come up with new ideas and whether it be show prep for, a new show or new music, trying to connect with artists or other podcasters and putting episodes up and promoting the episodes. And it's a lot of work. When I first started, I was like, oh, this is going to be easy, but I'll just turn on a microphone and a camera. Podcasting is easy.
Yeah. April Fool's, assholes.
Yeah. Rude awakening. It was a real slap right in the mouth real quick and real fast. Like, yeah, this is a lot more work than I anticipated. So.
Oh, it is. I mean, I've been going on 4 years doing this, and once you told me about Zencastr, I mean, just to be able to get monetized is great. Now,
I'm glad that you're liking Zencastr.
The only thing I don't like is that I suck at reading ads, and I think the people that watch my videos are seeing that. So, like, on Zencastr, instead of doing it where I show the video, I'm just doing the recordings of the episodes. So,
yeah, we've been doing a lot of, I have pre-recorded ones that I made, but we've been doing a lot of just live ad reads, and we've been having fun with them. Jeff, my other one of my co-hosts, he's been getting involved, and we're just having fun with them, and we're just doing live off the top of our heads, whatever random shit that I can come up with at that moment. And the great co-host that Jeff is, he just comes right in and feeds right off of me with even after. I mean, sometimes it sounds rehearsed, but I promise you it's not. It's just off the top of our heads, and we flow so well together that it works perfectly. But it's tough to do. If you're not used to it, it's tough to do an ad read and try to make sure you get all the key points in there and get the things that you're supposed to say in there.
Yeah, and you don't want to, well, I do it, but I don't think most of my viewers know. But I'll put like a piece of paper and I'll be like, make sure I get that note in there. I'll just put it like in front of my screen and I'll just start saying what it's on there. And I know I felt kind of bad because when I first started getting the ads, I was just like, okay. And I clicked on some that I didn't really like. Well, then you can't go back on them. So it's just like, well, I guess I just keep them accepted, but I just won't read them because some of them, this is nothing I'm going to be like, I don't want to be a hypocrite that's like, oh yeah, do this health food shit. But Steven, do you eat health food? And it's like, fuck no.
Yeah, fuck that shit. No, that's how I am. You know, I only want to get behind stuff that A, I believe in, or B, I'm you know, like we have Liquid IV and I freaking love it. I love Liquid IV. I have one I actually have this big bottle because I've been trying to drink more water than pop. Then I discovered if I put 2 packets in there, it's perfect. It's got the right amount of flavoring, and I drink on that all day long. It usually takes me all day to get it drank. And then like Saturday nights before we start the show, I have one. And, you know, as far as the hydration and stuff goes, it's amazing, you know, especially because Saturday nights I have a tendency to drink. So, you know, I don't wake up feeling all in the morning. You know, and then we have a W, which is an energy. It's a powdered energy drink. And I just recently tried it. And the flavor that I tried was really good. And it seems to work pretty well. I mean, you know, gave you that little pick me up, and like they as advertised, there's no jitters and there hasn't been a crash. So I'm like, okay, I can get behind that. I'll go ahead and, you know, I'll tell people about it. And my fiance has a blend jet. She wants another one, and that's one of our other, you know, sponsors. And she loves it. She absolutely loves that thing. And that's just why she said she wants another one. So I was like, well, now you can get another one. But no, like I said, I'm glad that you're liking that Zencaster. You know, I tell everybody about it. I've loved it. You know, and it's not even the monetization thing for me. It's the growth factor. The amount of people that are now listening, you know, to the podcast, the distribution that they do, and how they help promote the show and stuff like that. We spent 2 years, almost 2.5 years on Anchor for Spotify. Nothing against Anchor for Spotify. It's a great platform for podcasters to post your stuff and distribute your stuff. But the windows for growth and monetization really wasn't there like it is with Zencaster. And in the 2.5 years we were on Zencaster, our numbers in the last couple months or on Anchor, in the last couple months that we've been on Zencaster, our numbers for listens and stuff like that have, you know, 400 times more. You know? Yeah, it's crazy.
It was scary. Like when you were talking to me about it, and I kept asking you about Zencaster and Zencaster. It's like, well, I have 1,000 downloads on Buzzsprout. I was so nervous to start over again. And granted, I'm not up to the 1,000 downloads yet on Zencaster, but within that first night of switching everything around and going to Zencaster, I was up to like 300.
Yeah. And just in the last week alone, we've gotten on our most recent episode, not the ones that I put up last night, but the ones I put up last week, we've gotten over 500 listens on.
Yeah.
And the numbers just grow more and more every day, and I'm loving it. You know, I'm seeing it on our social media. It's not like an overnight. You go from 100 to 1,000 overnight, but you start to see the trickle down effect. And I've never really been one to look at numbers until recently. The last probably 6 months or so, I've been really watching stuff and kind of keeping an eye on it. But you get to you see that growth. That it's a slow growth, but slow and steady wins the race, as they say. Across the board on all of our platforms, and we're literally everywhere at this point.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting, and then of course doing stuff on YouTube it's fun, but at the same time it gets so time consuming. And I always love these people that are like, oh, I could do podcasting. It's like, have you ever talked on live? Well, they won't need to say my face, and I'm like, that's true. But at the same time, have you ever talked live? Have you ever been in a class where you're speaking in front of people or something? And they're like, well, I don't need that. And it's like, okay. And then within a couple of weeks, I get a hateful email saying, well, you didn't say it was going to be that hard. It's like, of course it's going to be that hard. Anything worth doing. And thank God I have the wife I do, where it's just like, she always, wherever I feel like I want to give up, I got such a great podcasting support system from my team, from even you, even Mark Benset and Brian from Talking Shit. They always say, Steven, what you're doing is great. It's just you need a few little tweaks here and there. And marketing is the biggest problem with me.
Marketing is
because people be like, yeah. I mean, people, even when I was on your guys' show and you were like, describe what your podcast is, it's like, it's whatever people want it to be. If it's something that people choose to like go like, oh, I just subscribe to your shit or listen to your shit to make fun of you, I'm happy about that. Or like Alyssa said, she's like, you know, Steven, there's people out there that have the same anxiety and depression as you do, or they even have it even more. Who's to say one time someone's like, oh, you know, this is it, I'm ending it. They go on YouTube and they find either your show, my show, Talking Shit, and they're going like, hey, you know, this makes me laugh. You know, it's cool seeing someone that probably doesn't have the financial means as some other people do to spend on a podcast. But I mean, it literally is cool. And, you know, for anyone out there that is feeling like, you know, they're at their wits' end, there are people out there.
There really is. And we've got a, you know, several of our fans. The words fans and followers always weirds me out. Like,
same,
you know, I'm like, oh yeah, they're our fans. You know, it kind of weirds me out. So, you know, I like to say friends. We might not even be friends, but you know, they come in, they listen to the show, they hang out with us. You know, I like to call them friends of the show and stuff like that. But there's been several times because, yeah, we're fucking knuckleheads, and yeah, Jeff and I Wednesday night spent an hour and a half talking about dried semen and having a blast. You know, we're fucking idiots.
Yeah.
But we can get serious from time to time, and we've had several listeners and friends of the show or whatever that have in the chat box. They're like, you know, you guys have gotten us through or gotten me through a hard time. We had a gentleman who came in. His wife was leaving him. She was taking the kid. He was a mess. And he was like, you know, I look forward to you guys Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. I come in here and this is my escape and this is what helps me get through. And I'm like, that's awesome, but we're just a bunch of idiots, man.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that you found that. And actually somebody that I do consider a friend. He's one of my OG followers. I've been doing this live streaming stuff for over 10 years now. I started all the way back on Periscope. And he's been following me since then. And we got serious one night, and he was in the comments, and he said, "Yeah, you know, man, I was going through some stuff, and I didn't say anything to you guys." He's like, "But, you know, knowing that I got to hang out with you guys a couple times a week," and he lives in the UK, so when we're live, it's like 2:00 in the morning over there for him, and he's like, you know, it helped me get through some of my dark days and stuff like that, and it's really true. You don't mean to, but you never know. You have no idea. What one show or one segment of a show or one topic is going to resonate with somebody and really, you know, pull them out of a bad situation or a dark spot. Lord knows I've been there more times than I can count. Unfortunately, but and that's where I've always kind of, you know, there's certain podcasts that I listen to or YouTubers that I watch and stuff like that, and it just gives me my escape. And now my show is my escape because I can go on there and as we joke all the time, I have a microphone and I can say whatever the fuck I want, and nobody can stop me.
I mean, that's the thing, and you know, one thing that I always feel that, and you know, I always get a kick out of it when people are like, "You have a platform now." I may have a platform, but you know what? I'm not one to get political. I'm not one to, you know, do any of that bullshit. But when, you know, I feel that I need to say something or stand up for something, I'll be that first one to do it.
Mm-hmm.
On my end, I know there's a bunch of people that probably would have already known about it and said, hey. Then a month later, I notice it, and it's like, hey.
Hey, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I'll be there. No, yeah, I mean, the whole we try very hard to stay away from politics, but it happens.
Oh, yeah.
It's the climate, it's the world we live in. We have the conversations, but the great thing about with our show is there's three of us, and we all three have different political views and opinions. And the great thing about it is we might not agree with each other on everything, but we're willing to sit there and talk and listen to each other or make fun of each other. Either way.
Yeah. It's like with all this stuff going on with Bray Wyatt's passing, which to all the fans and viewers of the show, if you don't know the wrestler Bray Wyatt, he did pass away, yesterday, I believe? Thursday or Friday?
Wednesday night, I think, or Thursday night.
Thursday night of a heart attack. It was stated that he had caught COVID earlier in the year. It kind of affected a heart issue that he already had. He was making good strides, and then like that, he's gone. We here at Steven Gervais and Friends podcast wish his family and his kids our condolences. Hopefully, they can get through this. I know it's hard. And of course, we lost Hall of Famer Terry Funk.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a tough time for wrestling fans. And then, of course, for the animals that got spayed and neutered, they're all laughing today because Bob Barker passed away.
Yeah,
we're not laughing because, we always think back to when he beat the shit out of Adam Sandler and Happy Gilmore.
The crazy thing about Bob Barker, that takes me back to my childhood and skipping school, quote unquote, skipping school. I'm sick. That was a part of my, growing up was watching Bob Barker on The Price is Right. And then, as we got older, you see him on Happy Gilmore. The Price is Wrong, bitch.
The Price is Right, bitch. I love that movie.
Yeah.
My wife literally had not seen that movie before. And I'm like, okay. So then we watched it one night, and her favorite scene is the one where he hits the golf ball and it hits the woman in the head and she falls out of the freaking thing.
No, it's what the old saying about deaths, they always come in threes. Yeah. And that was our 3 for the week. So hopefully, being a wrestling fan, I'm a huge wrestling fan. I grew up a wrestling fan. My kids are wrestling fans. Mm-hmm. Losing Terry Funk, I remember growing up watching Terry Funk, and he was a legend. He was a great, he was a hardcore legend.
Yeah.
He basically created the hardcore, wrestling style. And then the next day to get the news, about Bray Wyatt, which my kids, especially my son, Bray was one of his favorites.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I told him, yesterday I was doing podcast stuff and he sent me a TikTok video and he was like, I'm really super sad because Bray Wyatt died. I'm like, yeah, it kind of broke my heart because I know how big of a fan he was of Bray Wyatt, throughout the years, even when he was Bray and then he was the Fiend and he had the Follow the Buzzards gimmicks with Brody Lee and Eric
Wyatt family and all them, yeah.
Family and all that. And
he's even Husky Harris when he was with Nexus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I mean WWE lost it's been a long time since you found a wrestler that could almost chameleon and change and be so creative and capture the attention of the audience. Even as a heel, he was beloved by the fans.
Oh, definitely. I mean, the Fireflies, and then of course, which, why Vince decided to do what he did with The Fiend is beyond any comprehension someone would have. When he's getting his ass beat by Seth Rollins in Hell in the Cell, it's just like, why would you do that? Like, this is just the very beginning. Like, he beat Finn Balor, and then not even, I think it was the next pay-per-view, he's getting his ass just handed to him to the point where they had to stop the match because, I mean, I think they stopped the match that time because, I mean, he was supposed to take all this damage and keep getting back up, and it's halfway through it, I think Bray got a concussion or something, and they called the match, and it's just like, why would you do that? Like, you're building this guy up as one of the best heels you're gonna have, and you shit the bed. And that's why I know I'll get a lot of flack from the pro Vince McMahon contingent, but I'm so glad that he is hopefully the ones that had bought in the company that own the UFC and all that, hopefully they tell Vince, you're done. Our company now, you're done.
Well, the problem with Vince, and you can see it, especially if you're a little bit older.
Yeah.
And, I'm in my 40s. I grew up in the heyday of the Monday Night Wars, WCW.
Hey, Jordy, how are you doing, buddy?
What's going on, Jordy? WWF, the Attitude Era, this, that, and the other thing. And the problem with today is that as I'm watching it, I'm seeing the same gimmicks and the same storylines that were going on in the mid 90s, early 90s, mid 90s, whatever, late 90s, just different wrestlers.
Yeah.
You watch some of these wrestlers and you see that they're like Austin Theory is a John Cena replica.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look back at when John Cena first came in, and as he gained popularity, it's the same exact thing with Austin Theory.
Yeah.
And there's no originality anymore.
Well, no, and plus some of them get to do their own promos. Others got to be scripted and all that for them. And to me, I think that kills a wrestler's momentum so quickly because, I mean, could you imagine Sting or like, I remember when Sting became the Crow.
Yeah.
Or Crow Sting, whatever people want to call him, but he was the Crow. And, there's people that sometimes go on TikTok or on YouTube and they say, I feel like it's a disgrace that a wrestler decided to pretend to be Brandon Lee. And it's like, it was a tribute to Brandon.
It was a tribute, but it was a gimmick that Sting made his own.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about Sting is that he's always had that that creative outlet where he's allowed to kind of do his thing. I mean, even I loved when in TNA when he did the whole Joker gimmick.
Yeah.
Great. I mean, he was so damn good at it. And it was so fucking unexpected from him because, we were, for me as a kid growing up, I remember the bleach blonde, high top, hair, the neon face paint, the neon ring attire. And then he complete 180'd into that crow-like Sting.
Mm-hmm.
And several years down the road in TNA, he does another 180 into a polar opposite than he's ever been with that Joker gimmick. I mean, the guy is, and now he's back in AEW, kind of that. He's kind of a combination of the three with the Sting is in AEW. He's not as quiet and sullen as the Crow. He still has the face paint and the gear, but he's also not as laid. He's not as timid either. So he's more rambunctious and having fun. See flashes of that Joker Sting from time to time. I think it just happened a couple weeks ago on AEW. They're feuding with another faction, and he was toying with them, and I was like, okay, here we go. So it's hard to find that good creative style wrestler that can just kind of flow from one gimmick to another, and that's what we lost with Bray Wyatt, and you can tell in WWE when when Vince isn't in charge of creative and Triple H is or Stephanie is, because you get to see the new things.
Yeah.
Like the Bloodline was, love them or hate them, that was one of the most popular gimmicks and or factions in probably the last 5-10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a Triple H.
Heck, we were going to get another Bray Wyatt family.
Yeah.
And now, will they do it? Will they not? I mean, Dark Order on AEW survived after Brody Lee passed away. Granted, it's never been the same.
And they were already established before Brody Lee came in. So
yeah. But they built it up as, well, the Exalted One is coming. Well, I mean, there is Sting, the singer, but if you ever watch wrestling, especially NWA back in the late 80s into the 90s with WCW to the late 2000s, you get TNA Sting, you get WWE Sting, which kind of
Vince, I think they did him dirty in the WWE.
Yeah, they were trying to get the last bit of screwing over WCW with Sting, and it's sad. And Vince, if I ever met the guy, I would just be like, okay, you had Sting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you realize how much money you let walk out that door when you decided to, at WrestleMania, say, you know what, Sting, it's your first WrestleMania, we could let you in, but we're gonna fuck you in the ass and say, here's the last cornerstone of WCW that we didn't fuck over, and we're gonna do it tonight, and we're gonna do it on WrestleMania.
Yeah,
and it's gonna be a Shawn Michaels super kick. It's like, really?
Yeah, get out of here.
On Triple H there.
No, but wrestling's not for everybody. Yeah, my fiance, she doesn't like it. I don't watch it as much as I used to. If I'm, we do the show on Monday night, so I mean, I might get to watch a little bit of it here and there. I just mainly watch the highlights and see what's happening, see what's going on, and then I watch the pay-per-views. Usually, if they're on like a Saturday or whatever, the following week when my son's back home, him and I will sit down and watch the pay-per-view. But I mean, that's about it. You get excited like Cody Rhodes comes back. You get excited, and then you just watch this fucking just drag. It's like, just give him the belt already.
Well, they're trying to build him so much into his dad.
Yeah,
I mean, you hear his promos. It's just like how Dusty did it. And then, of course, and I have no problem with that. Dusty was an absolute fucking legend. And he'd probably tell his son, hey, you know what? Do it.
And better than what they did to Dustin. So, I mean, shit. Put him in that stupid.
But a lot of his was substance abuse, too, though.
Yeah. I mean, he ran with it. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. He ran with that goal, but he hated it for years. So,
yeah.
He ran with it. So,
I mean, it couldn't be any worse than when they tried to repackage him as Seven when he came back to WCW for like a year. And he just comes out and he's like, I'm not dressing up as a pedophile, just talking like he does when he was like supposed to be Goldust early on, where it was like you didn't know if Goldust was like a gay character, and there's nothing wrong with that. People don't bitch about it. I mean, that's the way Goldust was at first. Like, he would go up to like these really masculine type men, which again, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Like Roddy Piper one time, he was touching his, his body and just doing this outlandish shit. And Roddy Piper wasn't having none of it. Which I wish we still had Roddy. I mean, when we lost him, that was hard. Warrior, I kind of figured he wasn't going to last as long as he did.
That crushed me because he was my hero growing up. But I was kind of surprised he lived as long as he did, just because of all the, the issues and everything like that in his younger years. But I mean, he really turned it around later in life. But sometimes it's one of those things. I mean,
too late.
Yeah, you see all these stories like real life people. You know, some people might even have friends and family that are recovering drug addicts or whatever, and they get their life together and everything's going great, and then a year or two later, they unfortunately die because
Scott Hall.
the damage was already done. You know.
You know, I listening to what Kevin Nash had to say is he's like, you know, Scott Hall was doing good until the pandemic hit. Because
Yeah.
then all he's doing is just sitting there. He ain't going to conventions. He's not showing up on Raw, which kind of pissed me off how, you know, him and Jake had one of the greatest redeeming stories.
Oh, yeah. Jake,
And now Jake is back with Cheryl, one of his ex-wives. You know, I'm very happy for him that, you know, Cheryl was like, hey, you know, I love the guy. It was just the substance abuse was what kind of led to the divorce. But now they're back together, and Jake looks like he's having fun with AEW when they have him on there.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like he's having a blast. I mean, DDP has really pulled some guys in the wrestling business, some of these old timers. I mean, he has literally saved their lives and pulled them out of the gutter. You know, big ups to DDP for that, because that takes a lot of time and energy and effort, and somebody like Jake, man, Jake would, I mean,
he was gone.
He was so far gone, and to make the turnaround that he has, and he's a brand new person and has a whole new lease on life. That's something pretty crazy, pretty spectacular. And he himself, you know, I owe it all to DDP, because without DDP, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
Well, exactly. And Jake helped DDP get in, like, with the psychology, because let's be honest, there's no one as good with in-ring psychology and the promo psychology as Jake was.
He was a psychological fucking terrorist.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Jake the Snake was a psychological terrorist back in the day when he was in his prime in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute fucking terrorist, man.
And it sucks what Vince did to him, you know, in his first run with WWF back at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, when he DDT'd Hulk Hogan and the fans are cheering him and not Hogan, you knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, you know, that's you look back at this and you you know, if you watch some of the videos, if you are a wrestling fan, or even if you're not a wrestling fan, even as not a wrestling fan, if you look at some of the behind the scenes documentaries and stuff like that, they're really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, because I tried to look at some of them and watch some of them with the perspective of not being a fan, and it's really interesting, the stuff that you learn, the stuff that they actually open up about and talk about. And Vince is a dirty, rotten scumbag if you really listen to how he fucked over. You know, not just the big ones that we know about. Like, we all know that he 100%, you know, screwed over Bret Hart. And not just
Macho Man.
Yeah, you know, not only just the Montreal screw job, but just in general. You know, Macho Man,
Randy Richter.
You know, him in the Ultimate Warrior. Yeah, Randy Richards. You know, freaking Medusa.
Well, I mean, with God, as soon as you said his name, now it's blank.
Or Stevie Richards was one of those.
Ultimate Warrior. Warrior kind of did that to himself.
They were at odds.
Yeah.
The Warrior was on a downward spiral.
Because he got so ego driven once he won that belt, he felt he should have been Hulk Hogan. And there's no disrespect to Warrior, two different fucking characters. I mean, Hulk was your supposedly eat your vitamins and say your prayers, which on camera works, but as Bob Backlund, who, you know, Princeton, Minnesota, I gotta shout that out because, you know, I grew up in Minnesota. So Bob Backlund said, you know, one thing that he noticed about Hulk Hogan is in front of the camera, he was this hero. Behind the camera, total asshole. And
he was a money hungry douchebag behind the camera.
And who's to say, had Vern Gagne in the AWA, which was an old school Minnesota territory here in Minnesota, if he would have just said, you know what, I'm going to ride this Hulkamania, which to all you people that want to dispute this and send me hateful messages and all that, Hulkamania started in Minnesota, motherfuckers. It started in St. Paul, Minnesota at the Civic Center. Jumpin' Jim Brunzell and Greg Gagne, Vern Gagne's kid, who was part of the High Flyers with Jumpin' Jim Brunzell before Brunzell goes to the WWF, which is, as we all know, WWE. I know there's a bunch of keyboard warriors going like, it's WWE now.
Yeah. But WWE, you idiot.
They grabbed a piece of his shirt and ripped it off while the crowd went wild in the St. Paul Civic Center. And Hulk Hogan, being smart as he is, said, and Hulkamania was born there. So all you all that say that Hulkamania was Vince's idea, no, he just took it, ran with it, and made billions of fucking dollars off of it. So I don't want to hear this shit about, Vince created Hulkamania. No, he didn't. Fuckers. Well, it's these keyboard cats. I mean, it's so horrible. And you know that they're young. You know that they didn't grow up in the era that we did, which I was 90s. And it's like they'll sit there and be like, well, Sting never did anything like that. And it's just like, oh my fucking God. Yeah. And you don't want to shit on them, but they make it so easy to do.
It's the same thing that I run into being a football fan. I'm from Ohio, born and raised in Ohio, but I'm a Michigan fan. And I get all these goofy ass young kids that are barely in their 20s, like, oh, Michigan sucks. They've only beat Ohio State like 6 times in the last 20 years. And it's like, what up, Tony D?
Hey, Tony.
And it's like, bitch, shut up. You aren't even old enough to remember like certain coaches, or you don't remember when Cooper was there in Michigan, just slapped the hell out of Ohio State. It happens in rivalries. It's not that big a deal. And then you go, well, I mean, in more recent history, the Michigan has beaten Ohio State 2 years in a row and is a reigning Big Ten champion. Michigan sucks. I'm like, what planet are you even living on right now?
I mean, if you really think about it, I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, which, I know people are going to be like, your team sucks. Kirk Cousins sucks. I get it. I feel the same way about him. I don't give a shit about his stats. The guy can't win when it matters. And that's what it comes down as a quarterback. You have to win when it matters.
Yeah.
All the stats are good and fucking dandy. Like, people can go and say, well, you probably liked Bernie Kosar. Bernie Kosar was a little bit before my time. But watching old school full games of the Drive, which was between the Denver Broncos and
fucking Denver.
Yeah.
Fuck you, John Elway.
Well, you can't fucking say that though.
I can't. I'm a Browns fan. Fuck you, John Elway.
The fucking defensive coordinator goes prevent defense, and it's just like, why don't you just be aggressive the way that you were winning? I always hate when coaches do that. It's like you got the win in the bag, and then it's like, well, we're going to let them pick up the yardage and all that. And that's what happened.
Yeah.
And, of course, Marty Ball didn't really fucking work out as much as people wanted to.
Fuck John Elway and fuck the Denver Broncos. Forever.
I was so happy when John Elway won his Super Bowls, though. I wish Dan Marino would have gotten that, and I wish Jim Kelly would have. Hell, I wish Fran Tarkington and the fucking Purple People Eaters of the Minnesota Vikings would have gotten at least one. But,
Well, it's one of those things. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
I've been a Browns fan my whole life, and everybody's like, Browns suck. Yeah, I'm well aware of this. Trust me.
They suck so bad they moved to Baltimore and won a Super Bowl not even that long after.
Yeah, trust me. I have a closet full of jerseys of players who should have been amazing in Cleveland, and Cleveland just ruined them. You know,
I mean, Bernie Kosar though, he was damn good. It's just he ran up against Elway, and then of course after the fumble of Ernest Biner,
mhm.
which if they win that game, it's known as the comeback.
Yeah.
Because I mean they were down big, and Kosar, which I always see this, they shit on Bernie, even Browns fans,
I love
and it's
Bernie.
like you don't seem to realize, people, he was your team.
Mhm.
Like he was John Elway for the Cleveland Browns. It's just had they built around Bernie Kosar, I think they win that Super Bowl against the Giants in '86. And they won the Super Bowl against the Redskins in 1987. And then you don't hear about Doug Williams being the first, which people make a big deal because he's a black quarterback. But like I always say, it shouldn't matter the color of the person. It should be how they react to the situation. And Doug Williams ran with it. I mean, hell, they even made a movie called The Replacements with Keanu Reeves, which I'm still holding out for, the new Washington name to be the Sentinels.
Wait a minute. I have a Shane Falco jersey.
Yeah. Which, if you guys don't know, go check out, which some of my listeners wouldn't know. Go check out the Nonsensical Nonsense podcast that I was a part of on one episode. That episode did horrible. It was because I was on it. Some people say
we just welcomed you to the dark side. You came and hung out with the bad boys of podcasting. It was like,
hell yeah,
fresh meat. We got him now, boys.
Well, like people are like, Steven, what would you use if you could use a theme song in like the Wolfpack?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Even when I was on your guys' show, when you said the bad boys of podcasting, it's like I sit back and Mark's like, if they ever offered you a job, would you take it? And I'm like, in a fucking heartbeat. I wouldn't have to plan everything. I could just come in and be like, hey, how are you guys doing? Fuck y'all, and leave.
Like my other co-host. Just put everything on my back.
I mean, I even told Mark, I was like, if they ever needed someone to be on their show full time, I said I'd do it in a heartbeat. I get to the point where it's just like, I look at Mark's podcast and sometimes he does, not to be mean or anything, but he does take a little bit of shots of how our time being co-hosts together ended. Yeah. But I always seen him as creative. It's just me. I was so in my own head about shit that it was just like, I knew what he was doing was going to work, but then it's just like, but man, I don't do that shit. We follow a formula here, and it's just like, I've started to break away from that. And
I've noticed in watching like episodes, and your movie reviews are awesome. Those I enjoy. When I catch those and watch them and stuff like that. And it's almost like you just need that little bit of an extra confidence boost.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can almost tell when you're not quite sure yourself, and it's like it just needs that little extra confidence boost, that little extra oomph, and it'll be money all day.
Oh yeah.
Which and it comes with time. We've got a friend of mine, Cam, who's shown desire to want to come and be a part of the show. But when we get him on camera, he just kind of sits there, and we really have to try to force conversation with him. And, and it's just because of his nerves, and there ain't nothing wrong with that. There are changes in our show coming down the line. I've talked to Jeff about it a little bit. I've kind of talked a little bit about it on air. And Jeff's brought it up, he's going to be moving to France. I don't know what that's going to do for the show with him.
Fuck, Jeff in France. That's going to be interesting. I would pay to see that on a YouTube channel.
Yeah, because it's going to be like 2:00 in the morning over there when we start the show. And I told him, I'm like, if it turns out that you can only do one night a week. So I was thinking about looking and add, and like right now, Tony's working and stuff like that, so he's not around as much. So like Mondays, the last 2 Mondays I've done solo shows.
Hey, if you ever need a partner, tag me in, dude.
So that's what I'm thinking. Like I was telling Jeff, I said, I might get it to a point where, lock Tony in on certain days so he doesn't have to feel the pressure of being here 3 nights a week. And then, actually I mentioned you. I said, I'll reach out to Steven and be like, hey, you want to do a day throughout the week? And Jeff's like, oh, I'll always be here. You don't have to worry about that because, I don't start work over there. I won't have to start work until 4 p.m. And I'm like, all right, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah.
But, it is, Jeff and I lately, we've been doing the show, just the two of us. And it's kind of cool because we're tapping back into the OG. When we first started the show, it was just him and I.
Yeah.
So we're back to like our roots, so to say, and we're having fun with it. But at times you kind of miss that third share. You miss that third person who's there to add that little extra input. If we have that lull in the show or whatever. So things are changing, and trust me, your name's been thrown around.
I appreciate it, dude. I mean, I was interviewing a guest one night and Mark came in, and it's just like people are like, oh, hey, and which got a big spike, which I wish I could have gotten that magic a little bit more. But like I told Mark, I said that's the best point. When I go back to having someone that used to be on the show, which if Mark's listening, I wish he didn't leave, but at the same time, he had to do things his way. And I'm not shitting on Mark. I love Mark like a brother. Very proud of the changes he's made in his life. Keep doing it, Mark. You're doing good, buddy, and I'll always be in your corner. If you ever need me, come talk to me. And it's just it got kind of to the point where a couple of times I had to be like, I gotta go get water, and he's talking to the guest, and I'm in the back kind of like wiping away a little fucking because of the nostalgia factor.
Yeah.
I mean, me and him started a podcast that was called The Poor Boys. We didn't know what we were doing, so we never tried to like see if it would work. And then I went back to doing this show, which I just had changed it from Steven Gervais Reviews to Steven Gervais and Friends.
Yeah.
And a lot of people I know don't understand what friends means, but it's like it means to me that when I have a guest on here, people should know that I've built the rapport with those people. I mean, hell, when me and Glick first met, I'm sure Glick was just like, oh man, is this guy going to work being a guest on our show? And he's right. I am very timid when it comes to certain things because in a day of cancel culture today, you got to be so fucking careful with what you say. And that's why I try to say viewer discretion is advised and that my opinions don't necessarily reflect on what's going on with the podcast.
Exactly. And in our podcast,
you guys are fucking shooting from the hip. And I love it.
It's literally, we don't have like quote unquote rules. Like, we were talking about like the whole eating thing. Yeah. When we first started the show, I'm like, don't eat on the show. I jumped on Jeff's ass a couple times about it because he's got the mic right behind his mouth and all you hear is
I'm looking like, Tony that one day. That was pretty good.
And then Tony became a part of the show and he just, I swear to God, it's the only time that man eats is when he does a podcast or he does a stream because it's all he's ever doing. And I'm like, yo, man, can we not eat on the show? And he was like, oh, I'm hungry. I'm like, fuck it. And finally, I just got to the point where it's just like, I don't fucking care. Just don't be loud and obnoxious while you're doing it because, it is kind of not that there's anything professional about what we do, but it's obnoxious and it is extremely unprofessional when we're trying to do a live stream, trying to record a show. And all you hear in the background are plates banging around, or you hear a knife scratching on a plate, and then somebody's I'm like, come on, bro. They're like, well, you burp all the time on the show. Yeah, because when I started turning away and holding my burps in and not let you guys yelled at me or like, it's your show, burp away, man. I'm like,
yeah. It's almost like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah. So, we don't really have any structure. We don't really, we don't really follow quote unquote the standards. We say
Yeah.
what we want and we do what we want. And if you get your feelings hurt, sorry, but don't listen because what you see is what you get.
I remember when I guested on your guys' show and we ripped into that one troll so fucking
Oh
hard. That
yeah.
was great. I miss that fucking shit. And Mark even messaged me about it. He's like, dude, just because they're a troll doesn't mean you got to go that hard. And I'm like, oh my God, Mark, if you guys ever let me on your show and let me be a recurring person on that show, I will bring talking shit to a whole new level. I will shit on people that fucking come into that chat talking nonsense.
We have no mercy, and I'm the type of person where, I'll get back at you. I mean, I'm gonna go for your fucking soul first and foremost. But then we got people that come in, and I know who they are, and they're just assholes, and I'll intentionally ignore them, and then I'll ignore them for a month or two, and then they'll be in there and say something, and I'll just tear. I mean, like to a point where somebody was in there running their mouth, and their significant other had passed away, and I went in on their dead significant other.
Cool.
I mean, I've ignored this person for 2 months. I've kept my mouth shut while they've been in here just running their mouth, tearing me down, cursing me out, everything else. Now it's my turn, and I haven't seen or heard a peep from that person since.
Oh yeah.
They're like, "Goddamn, Glick." I'm like, "Nah, fuck that shit." Like, I'm not a nice guy when you push me to that limit of not being nice anymore. When you finally break me and I'm not being nice anymore, I'm going after your friends, your family, I'll go after your goddamn pet gerbil if I have to, if I know it's going to strike a nerve. You know?
And that's why we call him the people's champ, everyone.
I am the people's champ. I
Because
say that
he's out there taking souls and digging holes.
Yep. I say the things that you guys all want to say, but won't do it because you're good people. I'm the bad guy.
Oh my God. Which did you ever go back and watch some of the videos that I was on part of talking shit?
I've gone through. I've seen a couple of their episodes. I haven't gotten too far in. I listen to so many different podcasts, and I myself get so far behind. And it's like, I'll start listening to one, and I treat podcasts like I treat television shows.
Yeah.
Like I'll
watch the shit out of them.
Yeah, like I'll start watching a new show. It'll be like 6 seasons. Like, hell yeah, this is gonna be a good long run. And I get like season 3, and it's like, all right, I need to take a break. And I do the same thing with podcasts. I'll binge listen to podcasts to the point where it's like, all right, I need to move on. And then a few months later, I'll come back. Well, but then when I come back, they've got like 10 new episodes or whatever. And it's like, well, shit, now I can't even pick up where I left off because
I felt so bad for most of my listeners because Tuesdays I usually do my pre-record stuff. Well, I didn't this week because starting college and trying to get in the swing of that. And at first, college wasn't that hard. I mean, I got done with my first 2 classes within the first 2 days. And then all of a sudden, with some other stuff going on, it was just like one class, I was on 3 assignments almost there to being done with the first week of that class. And I made sure to tell the teacher that, hey, I wasn't able to get this book or whatever that I needed. Could I please get an extension? But I understand if you say no, it's okay. And it sucks. But then at the same time with, the whole student loans thing, and it's kind of like, well, you gotta have your student loans at this point, and it's like you're still waiting on the IRS to like be like, yeah, he is who he says he is. And it's just like, I told my wife, I'm like, I really love college, but at the same time, it's like, I don't want to be where I'm always being like, well, where's the, you need to pay us to go to classes. And it's just, and my wife's like, I know it's such a goal to you and how happy you were, when we decide to do this together. And I just told her, I'm like, you know what? It's kind of like it's predetermined that, and
it's becoming more of a hassle.
Yeah.
Than it's worth. But at the end of the day, like we said earlier, if it's worth doing, it's going to be hard.
Oh, and
Back then,
you
if it was
know,
easy, everybody would do it. Hell, my dumb ass would have went to college if it was easy.
I really wish though, and I've told her this, I as soon as I got out of high school, I was in special needs classes and all that. And one of these employment specialists
Mhm.
noticed that I had special needs and they took advantage of me saying, I don't know what I want to do. And as soon as I got out of high school, I wanted to go to college.
Yeah.
And being 30 years old and, you know, people expect you to know what you're going to do. And I know a lot of listeners are and people who will probably subscribe to both our channels. Well, more probably the nonsensical nonsense than mine, which doesn't hurt my feelings because let's be honest, nonsensical nonsense podcast is a lot better than mine.
We're a fucking mess. We're a hot mess.
You're a mess, but you got the following for it.
Yeah.
And you know, I feel so bad because when I do these things and then I end up leaving for some reason, it's like I hate it because my dad's like, well, you know, what happens if it gets really stressful? You know, you tend to run from that. And when I talked to my wife about it, she kind of had this look on her face, and I can't stand when I get that look where it's just
Mhm.
kind of like they feel it's not that they're disappointed in me. It's just that, you know, they know how much I wanted this, but yet it's not going the way I wish it would. And she gave me that look, and I it kind of it hurt because
Oh
it's
yeah.
just like, Alyssa, I'm trying everything I can. It's not on our end, it's on the government not wanting me to be like, oh yeah, this kid's going to college. Yeah, here's his student loans. And we did kind of start in August with, you know, getting everything ready for college and all
Yeah.
that. So we did kind of fuck up on that part. But like I told Liz, I said, if it does get to that point where I do leave there and I have to drop out, at least I tried.
Yeah. And that's one of those things. Like I said, you know, if it's something that you really want, stick it out, man. Just because eventually, you know, everything will get situated and it'll get easier. And then you'll be like, okay, I'm glad I weathered the storm, so to say. You know what I mean? It's kind of like anything in life. I mean, I didn't go to college. You know, I knew I
Mhm.
wasn't a college type. I went to a trade school. I learned a trade. You know, I've been doing the type of work I've been doing pretty much my entire life. Uh, you know, but I knew I wasn't the college type. You know,
Yeah.
now in my 40s, I've contemplated uh, doing a 2 year degree in like broadcasting and journalism just to
Oh,
help with the podcast.
that's what I'm
But
doing in a 2 year degree.
yeah, but at the same time, it's like I'm already doing the podcast thing. I'm already growing a podcast. You know, I'm already making waves and stuff like that. So what do I need to put myself in debt and go to college for? You know, I mean, what are they going to teach? You know, they might teach me how to run a board, but you know, let's be honest. At the end of the day, if I need to run a board, I'll figure it out on my own, like I've done everything else with this podcast.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people hear me say, you know, hey, I'd go on this show and do that. It's not that I'm saying that I give up on my show entirely. It's just,
It
it's
gives you another
nice
avenue.
when you don't have to think about all that shit all
Yeah.
the time of, okay. And me, I'll look at certain ones like I know Bullet when I did that review, that's like 400 and some views.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm happy about it, and then I look at some other ones I'll do later on and it's just like, oh. And the list is like, you are such a perfectionist that you can't stand that if something does one view, you hate that because one thing did 400 or 500 and you get down on yourself about it. And it's like, well, yeah, because I'm trying to find that consistency, but at the same time, there's so many people that get into this business for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And like I've said, and I even said on the show that I was part of with you guys, is that podcasting shouldn't be a, well, this person's a podcaster, I'm going to make sure they stop. No, this business is big enough and it's still growing. I mean,
Hmm.
hell, Zencaster, Anchor has gotten a little bit bigger.
Hmm.
Buzzsprout with, you know, AI, which if anyone ever needs it through podcasting, if you have trouble with kind of the description and all that, use AI. It literally, you type in what you want to do for that week and it helps.
Mm-hmm.
And I've started using it a little bit, and I noticed on a few of mine it's gotten a little bit better. But like I told the list, I said the only way I'll ever quit doing the show, my own show, is if one, I get a better offer.
Yeah.
And two, if it's something where someone can pretty much take the weight a little bit off of me, like Mark did with when we did the podcast together. He was out going and getting guests, but some of the guests he wanted were kind of like one time you wanted to interview a porn star, and I was just like, Mark, I get it, but at the same time, I'm not okay with that, you know, which granted, porn is whatever it is. I used to watch a ton of it before, you know, I met my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're fine. Sneeze away or burp away. It don't matter to me.
Oh, no, I was sneezing.
And, you know, I love what I'm doing, but at the same time, like I've told a lot of my listeners that, you know, you see us talking and you see us happy, you see us excited, but it's the behind the scenes that really sucks as a podcaster, because we are all about numbers. We may say we're not, but it's like when we get that, I'm at 84 subscribers. Once I hit that 100 subscribers, I'm going to be happy for about a day. And then I want to reach that next milestone because and that's nothing to take away from that milestone of reaching 100. It's just that's the way I've been raised. Is that, oh, you're at 100? Why aren't you at 250? Why aren't you at 500 and all that? And it sucks when you have mental illness or when you are a perfectionist, because nothing ever goes right.
I used to, when we first started the show, you know, I always had the vision with the show with, I want something that's going to set us apart from everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that being the fact that, you know, we are off the cuff. We do shoot off the top of our heads. Even when I bring news stories or I plan stuff for the show, I don't tell the guys because I want their honest reaction to it. You know what I mean? So I want them to be hearing about it for the first time as well, so I can get their honest reaction and their you know, first initial thoughts and opinions. And it's not something that they can sit on for 2 days and think about, or a day or whatever and think about. I want that first reaction, that first thing that pops into your head, get it out there. You know, we used to do a starting five, and that was we had so much fun with that. And it's one of those things that, you know, I just kind of stumbled upon organically, and the viewers really liked it and they got involved and stuff like that. But then it became, it was becoming the whole identity of the show.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we would draft on Saturday night, you know, and then it would go up onto social media until Wednesday, and the viewers and listeners and followers could vote on who had the best list. And then, you know, that's all we would talk about Sunday was, or Wednesday night after drafting was just that. And then Saturday it was all, you know, or Saturday, whatever it was that we drafted, that's all we talked about. And then Monday we'd get back into it. And then Wednesday we would announce who won and announce the new list. And it was just like, this is taking over the whole show. Not to mention the fact that, I mean, I beat the guys 27 times in a row. I'm undefeated. So, you know, it's like, you guys can't beat me. Clearly, I you know, that's why I'm the greatest champion of all time. Let's just be honest.
I'm coming for that belt. Every time I've heard people now say, Steven, you should have like a wrestling tournament with podcasters. I'm like, there's only one podcaster I want in that ring. And if it's a War Games match or whatever, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I hear someone say, hey, you know, it's good to be, you're on our team, I'm going to be like, there is no teams in this one. I will hit my own teammates.
I want Glick.
Yeah.
I want the nonsensical nonsense championship belt, damn it.
And as soon as I win that belt, I'm gonna be like people's champion now, bitch.
Just know, like Stone Cold said, when you hear the glass, it's your ass.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I
No,
remember
I,
I
I,
remember dressing up as Stone Cold for like a Boy Scout thing when I was a kid. And of course I couldn't use any of the language, so still won the thing.
I was scrolling through TikTok the other night, and there's a wrestling podcast or whatever that they were live on TikTok. What was that? Oh, okay. I was like, what the hell? I forgot that my fiance and I went and looked at a house today to rent, and we absolutely fell in love with it. We don't know what we're going to do with it because it's so big, but we fell in love with it. But I was scrolling through TikTok and I came across their live, and they call themselves the podcast tag team champs of the world, and they've got a belt sitting on their table when they were talking. And I said, "There's only one podcast champ, son, and it's me." And I said, "I'll take that belt right from you." And they're like, "Oh, you got a belt?" And I was like, "And it's always on the line. Anytime you want to come and get it." So, we've been kind of busting each other's balls back and forth and talking shit. And last night, one of the guys was live and popped in there. They were talking about, he was live streaming SmackDown, and they were kind of chit-chatting about, the whole Bray Wyatt situation. And he's like, "Oh, there's the podcast champ now." But I mean, people, I know it's kind of childish and kind of goofy, but people get a kick out of it. It's a talking point, and I get on there on TikTok, and I'll go live on TikTok on our page, and if I don't have it, people are like, "Where's the belt? Where's the belt? I'm like, "Hold on, I'll go get it." I'll go get it, and of course I put it on my shoulder, and I start cutting promos and shit on people and everything else. But it's one of those things. I'm a goofball.
People, you may ask him that, but one day if you see him depressed, you know who has taken that belt from him.
Yeah, that's right. I got a spare up on the wall.
I mean, it's.
I'll be like CM Punk. I'm the real champ.
and people bitch about him doing that, but in reality, no one beat him for the belt.
He's not wrong.
Yeah. So I mean, and plus they could have a Collision world champion, and you can have a Dynamite world champion.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that might be
something
they roll into, but now but that's where the whole champion thing came from, with me talking shit and calling myself the champ, was that starting five. And every time I would win, I would cue my theme music, and it was the Wolfpack. It started out with Stone Cold, and then it switched over to the Wolfpack because they were giving me shit, so I became the bad guy. And I was like, well, I don't really like Razor Ramon's entrance, and I didn't really like the Outsiders entrance, but I love the Wolfpack entrance, so we'll go ahead and use the Wolfpack entrance for the bad guy.
Yeah. Which, if you people don't know, I will play a certain something for all the fans out there so that they know what we're talking about when we talk about the Wolfpack. The Wolfpack, which I hate that they were. So the thing that sucks about the Wolfpack, for people that don't know, is that they literally, at first, they were just the Wolfpack. Well, then I don't know if WCW or Bischoff or Hogan wanted it, but then they became the NWO Wolfpack.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sucked. And as many people know, I always have hated that they had to do the NWO portion of it, because I mean it did so well on its own, to the point where I think Hogan and maybe Bischoff were like, well, we can't have this.
Well, it was one of those things where they gave Hogan way too much control in WCW, and Bischoff is a jack off anyways.
Yeah.
NWO Wolfpack. I was one of the most epic.
Oh, come on. I don't want to fucking
created.
hear from.
I don't
want to hear about it. I want to hear the song. Damn it.
Matt Riddle.
Yeah.
That is a dangerous name.
Just hearing this song back in the day was so amazing.
Yeah, it was.
Wolfpack is back, goes on mass destruction. Guess
The
who's
problem
here?
is
Bad
the
boys and wrestling. Just a competition, win the war, that's their mission. Got no mercy, see the rings like the street. If you don't.
Well, the thing that really killed it was that, again, it had to be another NWO.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Sting to join an NWO after he had just kicked the NWO's ass for a whole year straight was kind of a letdown too.
Yeah, it was kind of, but they became like the good NWO. You know what I mean? They were the face, but yeah, no, I mean I started using that, and we've had some other, to the point where like our starting five got completely ripped off by another podcast. Who we used to be friends with. Now apparently he doesn't like me, and I don't even know what the hell I did to him. But so
here's a good one.
The Snake Roberts, the match is at hand.
Well, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Here we are at WrestleMania, and it's the biggest match of your career. Why? Because everything you stand for is on the line, namely the $1 Million belt. Oh, yeah. It can be yours once again. You see, all you have to do to get it back is go through Damien and me. But you see, Damien and I don't forget. We remember all the times you made people grovel for your money. These were people far less fortunate than you. People who could use your money for essentials. And what did you do? You made fun of them. You humbled them, and you humiliated them. Well, now it's my turn. I'm going to make you beg, DiBiase. You are going to get down on your hands and knees. This time, you'll be the one that's humbled. This time, you'll be the one that's humiliated. And this time, you will be the one that grovels for the money. And how appropriate that the money you grovel for is your very own. A victim of your own greed, wallowing in the muck of avarice.
And I mean that's not his greatest promo. I still like the one that he did before his WrestleMania match against Undertaker.
Yeah.
That one's probably my favorite. But I mean, and I know I'll get a lot of shit about this, but going back to our discussion about the Monday Night Wars, to this day, I still think the best Macho Man Randy Savage was WCW. When they thought he was too old, and he got hurt a lot during his matches in WCW.
He, Macho Man was one of those, again, once in a lifetime type guys that may not have been the biggest dude in the locker room, but he carried himself a certain way. He had great matches, and don't put a mic in front of the man because he was one of the best. And there was a lot of times that you could tell when he would kind of quote unquote go off script and start riffing from the top of his head. But that's like Ric Flair, man. You want to talk about somebody on the mic that love him or hate him, good guy, bad guy. Everybody loved Ric Flair. It didn't matter. Yeah, you might be around your friends and go, "Oh, I fucking hate Ric Flair," but let's be honest. Everybody
nowadays I don't really
care.
For
him. Just needs to go the fuck away.
Yeah,
he's doing too much. I mean, you see that with athletes across the board. They stay too long. I'm not the biggest Pittsburgh Steelers fan, but I'm not one of those football fans where it's like, I'm a Browns fan, I fucking hate the Steelers. There's a lot of guys that have played and play for the Steelers now. Ben Roethlisberger was one of those guys that even though he beat the hell out of Cleveland for 22 years, I like the guy. He was a phenomenal quarterback. But his last few seasons, I mean, he just was embarrassing himself out there and kind of, making a joke out of his career. And that's what Ric Flair is anymore. He's a joke of what he used to be. And it's like, why do you keep popping up and showing up and stumbling around and bumbling around? You can't even get through a full sentence, you goofball.
And like, even with Ric Flair's podcast now, I mean, he goes and talks shit about all these people that really did nothing wrong. I mean, I watched the one where he talked shit about Jim Ross because of what he said about during the Dark Side of the Ring, the plane ride from hell,
Mhm.
and all that. And it's just like, let it go, Rick. Like, honestly, why does it matter to you? You do realize what you did probably was wrong, but because
Yeah.
you were built up as it was back in a day where Me Too didn't really matter and all that shit, which again, PC people, not saying it doesn't, just saying it's been overused. But you know, I mean, it just
How the
it
hell,
gets,
you piece of woke bastards?
yeah, burn in hell, you woke bastard. All I could think of when you said that was Almost Heroes with fucking Chris Farley, where he keeps going for the fucking eggs, and all of a sudden he's like, "Come and get me, you damn bird." That's another guy that, oh, if he could have ever just realized that he was more than the drugs and all that, more than his weight, oh, he would still be making huge money.
we you lose these actors and comedians so young, and we've touched base on our show about it. You know, like John Candy and Belushi
Yeah.
and Farley. I mean, they were legends, and they were so good at what they did, and it was a damn shame that we lost them so young and so early because you know, Belushi and Farley, I don't think they ever really reached their full potential of the level
No.
they would have had.
I mean, and the sad thing is, it happens after Belushi, you know, reaches very good success with Dan Aykroyd on the Blues Brothers.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, there was talks of Belushi was actually going to be one of the Ghostbusters
Mm-hmm.
in the, and who knows if Bill Murray would have been in there. I mean,
Yeah.
heck, we might have gotten the long-awaited third one back in the 90s had it been differently. But that's the thing that I think, and even Shrek with Chris Farley, that movie was basically done when he dies.
Yeah.
And I mean, so many people go on TikTok or they'll find, you know, when they finally released some of his lines that he had did for the movie, and they shit on it. And it's like, oh, I want to say it, and I'm going to.
You're too young to understand.
Fuck you, people that think that Chris Farley wouldn't have made that movie gold. I mean, Mike Myers did a very good job. Or no, fuck that. He did a great job. And I'm not disputing that. But ultimately, he did it because he was doing it as a tribute to Farley. They were such good friends. And Adam Sandler, David Spade, Chris Rock, Rob Schneider, if you ever hear them talk about Farley, they've never gotten over because they feel they failed him.
Yeah, and you know, that was such a tight-knit friend group that they had, and they still are to this day. And you know, shout out to Adam Sandler. I may not be the biggest Adam Sandler fan. I might not like all of his movies or anything like that, but you gotta respect the guy. He keeps his circle tight and he takes care of them. You know, he's got that mentality. If I'm eating steak, we're all eating steak at the end of the day. You know, and that and the fact that if you didn't know Adam Sandler or didn't know who he was and you seen him on the streets, it looked like a bum. Like you had like me on a Saturday going to Walmart in basketball shorts and a t-shirt and slides. You know, it's just like, you know, you got to respect that too, that he's not some high class jerk off because he's got bazillion dollars, you know, at the end of the day. So, but yeah, you know, Farley, unfortunately, it's just so much untapped talent that we really didn't get to see. You know, there was a few times where you would see him step away from the comedy side and be a little bit more serious, and it was like, holy shit, Farley's actually really good at being the serious type. And
definitely.
and bringing down the tempo and stuff like that. So, but it's just unfortunate, sometimes the way that drugs grab a hold of people and get them in a stranglehold, so to say. And it doesn't matter, again, you go back to what you said earlier about dealing with, mental health and stuff like that. You never know what's going on the inside with somebody. We can come on here and we can, or anybody, we do these podcasts and we're having fun and everything like that, but you don't know the struggle that's going on within. You don't know what's going on when the camera's off or when the microphone's off. I've been very fortunate last little bit that, I've struggled with depression and anxiety pretty much my whole life, but the last almost year or so, I've been in a pretty good spot. I'm very fortunate with that, but there was a lot of nights where we do the podcast and I turn the camera and shit off and just drink myself to sleep, just because it was so hard going through things and stuff like that. And you see these actors and these celebrities and, up until recently, nobody came out and talked about their feelings, men.
Yeah. Oh, that's still to this day, it's taboo. I mean, hell, I hear it from my mother-in-law a lot. That's like, well, why don't you have this? Why don't you have that? And it's like, why do I need those things?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, money is a big deal. I get it. But me, I could be down to my last $80. And if someone else needs it more than me, I give it to them. I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
And, and I know Mark and my wife, they get kind of, they've heard it enough. And it's just like, they're like, why do you not like your mother-in-law so much? It's like, because she heard something about me and ran with it.
Yeah.
And won't have the gall to at least get to know me. Now, if someone gets to know me and they think I'm an asshole, it's like, okay, you know me well enough to know that that's your opinion of me. I'm grateful for it. But when you hear something from someone that, one, didn't like me to begin with, and you think it's fact, that's when I can be civil with someone.
Yeah.
And I have been with her mother, with Alyssa's mom, but there's times where, like, people at our wedding, there was people that came up and danced with me that shit on me until the sun went down, thinking, oh, Steven, he doesn't remember these things. I got a good fucking memory. I may have taken a few concussions playing sports, but I got a good memory. And just because I'm being nice to you doesn't mean that I've forgotten what people have said. And like I told Alyssa, I said, because she's like, wow, you're really nice to my family. And I'm like, I've always been nice. It's just, I've gotten to that point that I'm not going to waste my time when they need me.
Yeah. People tell you I'm an asshole. Newsflash, spoiler alert. I'm an asshole. Yep. I am an asshole. Yep. I don't give. I am an asshole. But there, don't listen to everything you hear. Yeah, I'm an asshole. But you might hear something about me. It don't mean it happened. Don't mean I did it or anything like that. But yeah, that's I'm too old to be fighting all the time. I'm too old to be arguing with people. We're only allotted so many breaths in this life.
Yep.
I'm wasting my breath arguing with somebody who don't fucking matter.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, I'll be nice and cordial and everything to anybody and everybody. If you don't want to talk to me, you don't want to be around me, that's cool. Yeah, it hurt my feelings. That's exactly. Just like what I have to make to fake to be nice to your dumbass.
Well, and that's what I told Alyssa. I said, I can be nice, but I said, Alyssa, I'm sorry. There'll never be that relationship. Her mom will call me every now and then and be like, hey, Alyssa's phone must not be working. And it's like, okay. And it's this awkward shit. And it's just like, I'll always be like, anything else? And she's like, no, just please make sure Alyssa gets the message. And it's like, all right, we'll do. And then it's like, I hang up the phone and it's like, really? The only reason you'll call me is because you can't get a hold of your daughter that's trying to live her life.
Yeah.
and with anyone that knows me, I've told many people many times, I'm not one that's going to conform. I'm not going to be like, oh, hey, you know, I'm married to this person. I have to do whatever. I have to clear my schedule and do all this shit.
Mhm.
Me and my wife we didn't get into a fist fight or anything, but we got into a shouting match one night at the apartment, and it was over. You know, Alyssa, we're always over at your family's house almost every fucking weekend. And yet
Yeah.
I haven't seen my dad since we moved up here for 3 months.
Mhm.
Granted, uh, God, what was this month? I actually got to see my dad, and I was pissed. I'm like, why? Why can't I go see my dad? And then Alyssa said, well, you never ask. And I'm like, really? I have to ask to go see my motherfucking father?
Yeah.
And I mean, I was pissed. And
I've
so I
been there
felt
before.
bad because I know it wasn't Alyssa saying, oh, you need to ask me. It was just like, well, you never say, let's go see your dad. And it's like, again, I shouldn't have to. It should be just like, hey, can I get the keys? I want to go see my dad.
Yeah.
Because I almost lost my dad when he had his seizures. And I thought for sure I was going to lose the only guy that ever gave really a shit,
Mm-hmm.
who isn't my biological father, but as I always said, and I always love this quote, any person can be a father. It takes one person to be a dad.
Mm-hmm.
And when me and my wife my wife was planning the wedding because certain people took all that fun from me. And I was in a very bad headspace, which my mother-in-law found out when she was trying to force us to allow someone that we weren't going to allow at our wedding. And like I told Alyssa, I said, there was many times where I wanted to leave.
Yeah.
But I said I couldn't because it wasn't you that wanted me to leave, Alyssa. And I've always told my wife, I said, we may get into arguments, but I said, you know what? What couple doesn't? As long as we're not beating the shit out of each other, well, she'll throw a pan at me. I'll be honest. I and you know, I always tell my wife, it's like, I don't deserve you. And she's like, why do you say that? And it's like, because. And I always go back to the past, which I fucking hate. And anyone that deals with mental health issues knows that. We go to why we have this in the first place.
Mm.
I mean, my childhood with my mother being abusive to not only me, but my older brother. And of course, learning in third grade that my dad, Brian Jarvis, isn't my real father, and that my real father found out I was his kid as a baby and he took the fuck off. It's just like,
It just hits you with the Jeff deuces.
oh, my mom was the one that fucking decided, hey, you know, Steven's getting too close to the guy that raised him. I need to change this. And she used to hit me because I would say Brian is my father no matter what. And she didn't like that. Granted, will my mom ever apologize for that shit? No, because she's erased it from her mind and was just able to blame it on other people. Like my brother, she was able to blame him for so many things that he didn't even do. And it turned his life bad for many years, which I'm so happy that my brother finally turned it around. And, you know, everyone will probably watch this and be like, oh, he's shitting on his brother. It's like, no, there was times where me and my brother couldn't even be in the same room without us almost wanting to duke it out with each other because our relationship was so shitty. And it was because he thought that I was trying to take his dad away from him. And it's like, no, Keith, I just want to belong.
Yeah, right. You just want to, you just want to be somewhere where you not only belong, but you want to feel wanted and stuff like that. So,
and that's why my last name is Jarvis. I mean, when Brian took me in, my last name was Jarvis. It became when my mom had her mission to destroy all that is when it changed to Acosta. Well, once I finally was able, and of course, Alyssa being in my life, she's like, Steven, you're not an Acosta. And you feel that every day. You're a Jarvis and you know it. So, and I got it legally changed to Jarvis. Well, the only thing I have to say about it is that as people out there that have had the situation that happened to me, you still feel the reason why Ernie, who is my real father, left. Why? And of course, people are like, well, will it make a difference if you know why he did it? And it's like, no. But you go back to that and you're like, why? What did he do?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
It's about closure sometimes, and being able to close that door and walk away with some kind of understanding, because just don't know why, or you almost blame yourself, like, well, is there
Exactly.
something different, or maybe if I didn't say this or act this type of way, maybe he or she or whatever, depending upon the situation, maybe they wouldn't have left. Maybe they'd still be here or whatever. So it's nice to have that closure, and I think a lot of people understand that to a degree. Other people just, they've never been through it. So then and they're not willing to put themselves in somebody else's shoes.
No. Oh, they never could. I mean, hell, if not ragging on my mother-in-law, but if she could just put herself in my shoes for one day, she'd be like, you know what, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But that's never going to happen, because when you value possessions over people, you tend to not give a shit about when people are going through a tough time. Or even with Alyssa's grandma, sometimes she doesn't understand that when I don't want to go over there all the time, something's probably going on in my life where I just want to be alone.
Yeah, you just need that some time to yourself to just kind of get your mind right and think about things and figure things out,
Oh, it was great. Like when me and Alyssa were dating and all that, and when we got engaged, her grandma would be like, well, why do you only come over during Christmas time? And it's kind of like I wanted to say, well, gee, I wonder why. For 7 years, I've had to deal with, oh, Steven's not good enough. Steven's a piece of shit. Steven's this, that, everything under the moon. While my wife had to weather all that stuff.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not there, people are talking shit about me behind my back, and they're telling her, oh, you don't know Steven. Yeah. It's like, how doesn't she? She's been with me for 7 years.
Yeah.
It's like, if anyone doesn't know me, it's the people that are talking shit and believing everything they hear.
How long have you and your wife been together total now?
7 years.
Okay,
We've been married for almost a year.
Oh, wow. You guys are still in the newlywed game.
Yeah. And she still hasn't fucking killed me yet. I always feel so bad. And of course, my buddy Bryant, which I wish I could get him on the show every once in a while just to have us talk shit about each other. We'd probably be doing better than some of the stuff I do now. But he asked her the first day he ever met her, like, hey, blink twice if you're here against your will. And it's just like, you fucker. And I've known that kid since middle school. I mean, the first day me and him met, literally 2 people were trying to jump him because they didn't like him, because they didn't know him. And I got right there. I spun Bryant around and I stood right by him, put my arm around him like he was my brother. And I said, you know what? You want to fuck with him? You got to fuck with me first.
Yeah.
And so every time I hear that song, See You Again,
yep,
because they had to play it after Paul Walker had passed away, it's just like, I always think about people like that I've lost, or that, have kind of drifted apart from. It's just like, fuck, but I mean, it is what it is. And some people come in your life for weird reasons that you'll never fathom, but thank God they have.
Yeah, I say that a lot. Everything. I've always been a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. At the end of the day, people come and go out of your life. Sometimes they teach you a lesson. Sometimes, there's something that you need to learn from that friendship or that relationship. Sometimes you just make fucking mistakes, and that's all they were, was a goddamn mistake, and you just learn from it and move on. And that's the lesson that you needed to learn. Look, you're going to make mistakes down the road. You can't sit and dwell on it. You can't let it consume you. You can't let it become you. You just move on, because everything happens for a reason. And if it's meant to be, it'll be. And that goes in any aspect of a relationship, whether it's friendship or family or relationships or whatever. If they're supposed to be there, they'll be there. If they're not there, they won't be.
Yeah, I mean and my wife's in the room with me, but she knows that without her, I mean, my dad at the point at one time when I met my wife, first met her, my dad was going through foreclosure on his house, and my dad at that point was a heavy drinker, and it was hard on me because I was trying to figure out who I wanted to be, and my dad going through what he was going through, and if Alyssa ever showed people the text messages she got from me when we first started talking and all that, they would be like, "Why'd she stay?" And it's just like, yeah. And then of course when I gave up my dog Jax after he had fractured his leg, we got the surgeries and all that. It's just we never knew a thing about pet insurance. And the people at the vet were like, well, you could have gotten pet insurance on him before this happened. And it's like, I've been taking this dog to the vet ever since I owned him. And you fuckers didn't even decide to say anything.
Yeah, you couldn't tell me and like, hey,
Yeah.
we can get you pet insurance and save you some money. Da 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 da. It's just like,
and there was literal people who I won't name names. They know who they are, but they were literally messaging my wife saying Steven should kill himself because he gave up his dog. And
yeah.
I'm like, wait a second. We paid for that surgery, which made it so that we weren't eating. We had literally have to go to one of my parents' places just to eat because money was that tight.
Damn.
And the reason I gave Jax up for adoption was because I wanted a better life for him.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in my life, it wasn't fair for an Australian Shepherd with Black Lab mix, which they're not big dogs, but I mean, they're big enough. They're too big to live in an apartment.
Yeah.
And I had that dog for many years. And when people were saying shit like that, it's just like, I finally told Liz, I said, let me message these motherfuckers and they can go meet me somewhere. I'll go meet them on their turf, wherever, and we will fucking have it out, because that was the hardest decision to ever fucking make.
Mm-hmm.
And these people, they won't ever understand that because they were never in that situation, because they always say, well, I knew what I wanted to be when I was your age and all that. And it's like, good for you people, like, fuck off.
Yeah. I'm 42 years old almost, and I don't know what the hell I want to be when I grow up.
I mean, I'm 30 years old. I'm doing community college right now, but at the same time, with everything that's starting to go wrong, it's like, it gets to that point where it's just like, something's against me. Like, and I know people will watch this and be like, oh, he's just saying that. It's like, no, there's been times in my life where it's just kind of like you sit back and it's like, someone's giving me the finger and I want to know why.
Yeah, the whole damn universe is out to get me. And I think a lot of people feel like that from time to time. I mean, look, Lord knows I've been there. I mean, I've even had the conversation with Nikki, my fiance, and I've said, things are going too good.
Yeah.
In life in general, across the board, the podcast, the kids, my job, there's a part of me that is almost afraid to enjoy. And I'm not saying that I'm successful and I'm rich and I'm famous, but it is a certain type of success that I'm having. Like, there's a part of me that's afraid to enjoy it because I'm waiting for the other foot to drop. And
definitely, me too.
That universal kick in the dick.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's like, I can't continue to think like that. Look, I've been through a lot. I've overcame a lot, and things are looking good and things are going good. Let's go ahead and embrace it and enjoy it and have fun. And that's a hard thing to do from time to time for people. So I totally understand that feeling of the whole damn universe is out to get me, and I don't know what the hell's going on.
I mean, there's been times where it's just it and granted, not lately, but like before, when me and my wife were first starting out, and then of course when I gave up my dog, there's times where I just said fuck it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't care if I was alive or not, and it's not smart to be that way. And to anyone that's listening to this podcast that hears those words, there is a silver lining in everything. I mean, I may shit on myself. I may think I'm a bad person. But honestly, as I've been told many times, and I tell myself a lot, would I have the things I have or the people that are around me if I was such that type of person? And a lot of people think that. And you know what? I'm here to say this. I'm not trying to be preachy or anything, but you know what? You got to wake the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
You got to look at that person in the mirror and say, you know what? There's a reason why these people are around me, and you're always gonna have people that hate you no matter what. They'll pick on you for fucking. My thing is that I haven't had a job in a while. So fucking what? I'm still fucking healthy. I'm trying to build my business. I'm trying to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
And most of these people that do this couldn't fucking do the same. They'd fold. And that's why people need to realize you're gonna have people that do that. But you also got to think in their mind where you don't have to put yourself in their shoes, whatever. People are going to hate you just because they don't like you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if they pick a single solitary moment why they don't like you, just tell them to go fuck themselves.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing. You know, people don't like the podcast and shit on the podcast and talk shit about it. And it's like, the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
You know everything about podcasting. Why aren't you? Oh, that's right, because you're on an app where the same group of assholes have done nothing but argue for the last 2 years, and you're still in the same arguments. How are you going to tell me how to do a podcast or that my podcast sucks when you aren't doing shit? Yeah. It's like, calm down, because our door is always open and nonsensical nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to know nonsensical nonsense, just let us know. I'll bring your ass on. Haters or not, I don't care who you are. Door's always freaking open. You want to come in and start hating on it, be ready, because we ain't the type of people that are just going to lay down and let you come and talk shit and run our show down, especially on the show. I'm going to let you up.
Oh, that's why I said, there was an email I got from someone that remained anonymous, which I never knew you could send an anonymous email, but they did. And they fucking were shitting on my wife, Alyssa, because she used to be a co-host on the show too. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, well, she's this, that, and everything under the sun. And I'm like, you know what, dude? I'm going to tell you one thing. And I simply messaged them this. I said, set up a meeting point. I'll come meet with you.
Yeah.
And I said, whatever happens, it's your decision.
Yeah.
But I said, until you have the balls to say that shit to my wife's face, I never want to fucking hear it ever again. And that's why I love Rip, the character from Yellowstone, because and some people will say, well, you're not like Rip. It's like, you've never pissed me off to the point where you've seen that.
Yeah, no, everybody's tough and everybody has an opinion when they got a keyboard in front of them and they're anonymous. I'm not out here trying to fight everybody and anybody. I joke around and I kid around. I'm like, I got like 5 good fights left in me. I'm old. I'm busted up, man. I've fought most of my life. I got like 5 good ones left in me. I'm not wasting a fist fight on some douche news, from fucking internet. Now, I'll go back and forth with you. I'll roast the shit out you. I'll invite you on the show. I mean, like last week, we had some ass clown that came in that was on our Instagram talking shit. And I know where it came from. I don't know who it is exactly, but I know where they came from because I was making fun of a certain group of people and dragging them for being losers. And then all of a sudden this fool showed up with a fake account on Instagram. And I just stopped commenting back. I just kept putting the link because we were live. I just kept putting the link. Come on in. On the show. Come on the show. Come on the show. Here's the link. Here's the link. And it's doors open at the end of the day. I mean, if you really don't like the show that much, at least come on the show and tell me why. Damn.
Yeah, definitely.
Stop hiding.
Yeah. I always get a kick out of that when they just shit talk you, but when you give them that link, crickets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've been playing a lot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the game, And
Mhm.
yesterday, this guy just kept saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing? He's gonna spot you." And it's like, dude, do you let me fucking play?
Yeah, let me.
And
Yeah,
finally, I fucking just roasted him. And then after that, he called me the F word, which
yeah,
it's like, hey, you know what? So be it. If as long as I'm fucking happy, I'm happy.
yeah,
But yet, if you saw my wife, you'd know that's not the case. And so
yeah.
I finally said, because he escaped the same way this other guy did. And he's like, why didn't you escape with us? And I'm like, maybe I didn't want to do that. Maybe I wanted to find a different way.
Yeah.
Well, you're a F word and all that. And I was just like, okay. And what did your wife do to piss you off? And he's like, well, I'm not married. And I'm like, thank God for that.
Yeah,
Which
right.
I'm glad I wasn't streaming because I do have a Twitch channel, and I was like, I should try and stream a little bit of it just so that people can see another side of what I do and all that shit. And um Alyssa's like, yeah, but here's the thing. You have a very short fuse with people. And I'm like, hey, people love that shit.
Yeah, we said it on the show multiple times. As Eric Bischoff said, controversy sells, man.
Yeah.
Drama, drama, drama. Speaking of that new Texas Chainsaw Massacre game, how is it? I've been debating downloading it and playing it.
I like it. And if you ever want to play, I'm down. I'll play with you, man. I don't care. I love that game.
It looked like it was a lot like Dead by Daylight or something. Is it
And I
something?
always love when people always try and do that with comparisons and all that. It is to a point, but it also is it's different. It's its own game.
Yeah.
And also, I always get a kick out when the people are like, "Well, Dead by Daylight's so much better." It's just like, who the hell cares?
Yeah, no, I've played a little bit of Dead by Daylight. It was all right. But I was like, oh, Texas Chainsaw. I'm horror genre is my world. I love the horror genre movies, and like to the point where several years back or a few years back, Call of Duty had released on Halloween. They had the
Michael?
Jigsaw, Leatherface.
Oh yeah, the seasons, yeah.
I think Jason Voorhees or something like that. But I bought the bundle. Because I'm like, this is cool. I'm a horror guy, I'm going to buy the bundle just so I can play as these characters. So I kind of played Dead by Daylight a little bit here and there. Didn't ever get really into it, but then I seen this, and I just watched the video to it, and I was like, okay, maybe it's something similar to that, but with the Leatherface and his family and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre storyline, that might be a little bit cool. I just haven't downloaded it yet because I haven't really, honestly, been. I was going to play Call of Duty last night, but I wound up getting so busy with posting the episodes and shit that I didn't even get to play. And I was like, well, I'll play Saturday. And we got up this morning and went and looked at that house, and then we went to lunch, and we came home, and the Browns were playing, and then I was like, well, I can watch the Browns game and play a little bit of Call of Duty. Or I was like, screw it. I'll just watch the Browns game and then get ready to come on here with you. And one of my buddies was like, what are you doing today? And I said, I'm pulling double duty. He's like, what the hell are you talking about? I said, well, got my show at 7. And then I said, before that, I'm going on my buddy's show. And he was like, oh, I did see that. He was like, you're just everywhere, aren't you? Yeah, a little bit.
And that's another thing with being a content creator. We're pulled in so many different ways. I mean, and sometimes I'll put something like, hey, I have this interview, and I'll forget who it's with, and all of a sudden they'll cancel at the last second. It's like, oh, thank fucking God.
Yeah, that happened to us last Saturday night. I had actually screwed up and double booked us.
Okay, yeah.
And we had 2 before. And I sent the links out at the beginning of the show. And the one guy came back immediately, and he was like, oh, shit, man, my bad. I'm so sorry. I totally forgot. I was like, no worries. I said, if you can make it, the show runs until 10. The links here just pop in. I said, if you can't make it, that's cool, too. He's like, yeah, I totally forgot. I got busy. He's like, I want to come on the show. I really do. Can we reschedule? And I'm like, yeah, definitely. He's like, I'm out of town the next 2 weeks. So when I get back, we'll get something scheduled. I was like, absolutely. He's a cosplay guy, and he's super popular. And I just took a shot in the dark, asking him if he wanted to come on the show because I'm a fan of his cosplay and whatnot. And I was like, yeah, no worries, don't worry. You know, he's like, oh, cool, man, thanks. The other guest that was supposed to be on didn't see the link until Sunday morning, and he was like, oh, bro, my bad, we didn't see this until this morning. I was like, it's all right, no big deal. You know, I was like, fortunately, I not only did I double book, but I also kind of dropped the ball and didn't promote like I should have. So I got a little busy with other things, and it was like, okay, kind of dropped the ball, but it all worked out in the long run because, you know, I kind of screwed the pooch on that one, but then at the same time they had forgotten as well. So I was like, okay, cool. You know?
Yeah, I have always, yeah. And like my thing is that as long as people give me a fair amount of time, it's like, yeah, I can come on the show, or yeah, you can guest on the show. It's just, I always hate it when people at the last second, and Mark knows he's done this to me a couple of times, but one time Brian wasn't able to make Talking Shit Show, so then he asked if I'd come in. Well, Brian ended up making it anyway, and I think Mark was like, well, we're not going to use you tonight. And Brian's just like, fuck that, bring him in. And I was like, cool, you know, and just I was out of it that night, and thank God that episode got destroyed, because I mean, you would have watched that and you would have thought that I was not even there. Because I mean, it was just, and I don't know why. It was just one of those things where it was good, fun discussions that we were having that night. It's just, something must have been going on because I was out of it.
Yeah, you just weren't really, I mean, you were there, but you weren't really feeling it.
Yeah. And a lot of one-worded answers. And Brian, I could see him like looking over at Mark, like, what's going on with Steven? And Mark was messaging me that night. And it's just like, I finally, after it was done, I'm like, guys, I'm sorry, I shit the bed. And they're like, we're just wondering if you're okay and all that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. It's just, I don't know. And then within an hour, I passed the fuck out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we've done shows like that where I'm just, you know, which is not good for me considering I'm the host of the show. You know, I got to be on point. But we've done a couple shows, you know, not many. It's only been one or two where I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't in the mood. You know, thank God for Jeff, and I think those nights that we had some of our other friends that had popped in, like Brian or Smoke or Connor. So they just, you know, I can't remember who all was there, but they just jumped on and just kind of ran with it. And I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't. Just one of those weird moods, and you know, the guys rolled with it, and I was able to, you know, still do the show, but I didn't have to do the whole hosting full on host type bullshit.
Yeah.
But it happens, man. It really does. Sometimes, you know, I try to be on all the time. I try to, you know, as one of our former co-hosts, Mike, I used to have to tell him all the time. I'm like, dude, when the cameras come on, all the shit that's going on in your life, I said, you got to figure out a way to close the door and do the show. You know, I said, we all got stuff going on, but we all come into the show and put it behind us for a couple hours, you know, to get that escape. I said, and he just wouldn't. He'd come in, he'd be mad as hell for work or his ex-wife or whatever, and it would just carry on to the show. I mean,
yeah,
I think I've had times like that. I know Jeff has, and Tony has. We all have. But you have to be able to put that stuff behind you if you're going to do the show, or just say, hey, I'm not going to make it tonight. I got too much shit going on, which is cool. You know, that's cool too. And, you know, unless you know, where I'm an open book, you know, I don't keep too much shit to my chest or to myself. You know, obviously there's private things that I don't talk about, but I'm an open book. Jeff's an open book. So, you know, if something's bothering me, I can come on the show and be like, look, I got this shit going on, man. I'm fucking mad as hell right now. Or, you know, I'm depressed or whatever, or vice versa. Jeff will do the same thing. That feeling of just like not being there and not being on, that's tough to overcome. And it does kind of whether or not the co-host will say it or the other guys on the show will say it takes a toll on the show itself. I mean,
Definitely.
it really does kind of you can feel the tension in the air and stuff like that, and it's just like, come on, dude, just gotta get through this. A couple more hours, come on,
Yeah. Oh, I've had guests like that too, where me and Mark were talking with this one person, and they just everything I'd say they just didn't like, and they'd be like, "Well, but that's your opinion." It's like, "Well, yeah, it's my motherfucking opinion." So finally, Mark's just sitting there going like this every time, and he's going like this whenever I'm talking, and it's just like, it's like, okay. And so then finally they said something, and I'm just like, "Listen here, fucker, we invited you on the show.
Yeah,
We did not beg you to come on the show. We did not ask for you to come on the show. We invited you. And then you, playing your little pocket pool politics, as I like to say it, an hour or a minute before the show said it was 3 minutes before the show, wasn't going to make it. And so me and Mark were like, well, we'll come up with something else. We'll do a live stream, but we'll talk about something else.
yeah.
Well, then this motherfucker messaged me 2 minutes before and says, "No, I'm able to come on." And so I'm like, okay. So then we're talking to him, and I mean, this person was a pompous ass motherfucker. And I hate people like that. I really do. And so, and I'm just sitting there just asking him a question, and he'd be like, "I don't like that question. Can you ask me a different one?"
Jesus
And it's just like, oh, okay. And Mark's just seeing how I'm getting pissed. And so finally, I hear my phone vibrate, and I'm looking here. It's Mark, and Mark's like, "Just let it go, let it go."
Yeah.
And I just finally said, when he said what he said, I'm like, you know what? I've held this in, and I said, "Get the fuck off my show."
Yeah, get the fuck out of here.
And the guy's like, "Excuse me." I'm like, "I don't care who you are, just fuck off." I said, I'm not gonna deal with it anymore. I said, "I'm asking you a serious question. You blow it off. You ask me to ask you a different one, and you're fucking being an asshole." I said, "At least have the fucking common decency when someone at least says, yeah, you can come on my show, promote your shit, that you're gonna fucking have that common courtesy." And the guy's just like, "Well, I didn't want to be on your show anyway." I'm like, "Then why the fuck you here?
Yeah,
Why are you still here?" And he's like, "Well, are you still gonna promote my shit?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'll fucking promote it by taking a shit on it and fucking saying this is how I think about your shit," and fucking I kicked him off the show.
Yeah. No, we've been very fortunate in the few guests that we've had. They've come in, and I try to give them a little heads up. Look, we're not your normal podcast.
Oh, I know. You were worried about me.
Yeah, like I told you, we're a little unhinged, and there's no, we just say what we say, type deal. Give them a little warning, and we've been very fortunate. We've had some great guests on the show, you included. But like
I was about to say, no, you don't have to kiss my ass just because
no,
you're on my show.
we had fun. The guys enjoyed it. We had fun. I think, as much as I was kind of geeking out that we had the lead singer of Blacktop Mojo on there, one of my favorite rock bands out there right now. We were very fortunate to get Matt on the show. He was great. We had some connection technical difficulties and whatnot like that. He was literally on a tour bus. They were leaving that night. They had just hit the road for their tour. But I think, one of my favorite guests was Chris Cluey, former kicker, Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota Vikings punter.
And he came right in the gate, boom. And we had so much fun with him. We laughed and joked. To the point where he stayed way longer than I thought he was going to stay. The only reason he left was because he had to go get his kids, because he's out in California. So it's right behind us. He had to go get his kids or take his kids to soccer or something like that. And he was like, "Well, I'd love to come back." And I was like, "Oh, cool." It was like one of those things, like, when you run into somebody that you've seen him forever and it's like, "Oh, dude, we got to hang out." And you're like, yeah, definitely. But then you never hang out. I really thought it was like, just crispy and nice. He's like, "Oh, I'd love to come back on the show," to the point where I can't remember if it was that same week or the very next week, he was right back. and we picked up right where we left off. He was so fun to hang out with. And like I said, he's probably one of my favorite guests that we've had on the show so far, just because it was so unexpected. And he rolled with the punches. He busted our balls just as much as, you know, we bust each other's balls. And Jeff took a couple cracks at him, and he snapped right back at Jeff. And it was so cool to have him on the show. And to be and he was a football player that it wasn't like one of those random football players that you didn't really know. I mean, I remember watching Chris play for Minnesota and stuff like that. And I remember him as a player, and it was like, that was really cool because like this dude had a legitimate career. Nothing against, you know, we've had other former football players on. One guy played for Clemson. And he got drafted, or he was an undrafted free agent. Got signed by New England. And we had another guy that was a football player. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Holy shit. But he was a former Clemson player too. And he was great. I mean, we didn't know what to expect, but he came right in and he was cool as hell. And he was like, I only got a half hour. Well, that turned out he stayed for an hour. And he was supposed to be coaching. He coaches flag football or plays flag football, one of the two. And it turned into an hour. And then he was literally sitting in the parking lot at the complex. He was like, I have to go in, but I don't want to leave. I'm having fun with you guys.
Well, next time the Nonsensical Nonsense podcast has me on, I'll amp that bitch up to fucking 100. Because even my wife, when I was watching it back, I was like, yeah, I could have. I was so nervous because I don't have many guest appearances of my own where I can guest on someone else's show, which I love that a lot more than I love when. Which, not saying anything bad about the guests I had, I love every guest that came on the show and gave me the opportunity. My favorite one, which I think Mark is going to hate me and Peter Anthony might hate me for this and some of the other ones, but Sandy Johnson. I had worked on getting her on the show, and as soon as I announced that Judith Myers from 1978's Halloween was coming on my show, everything went fucking wrong.
Oh man.
But I got the interview. I got it. I want to have her back on the show. There's a few of them I want to have back on the show. And I know some people have said, well, you do a lot of indie type guests, and it's like, so what?
Yeah.
You know, I would rather work with the people that are taking it as an honor to be on. And I'm not saying that like it's an honor to be on my show, because it really isn't. But
this is just a huge waste of my time, to be honest with you.
I know. I see you over there.
Work. I'm like, God damn.
I told some of these people, it's like, I want them to come on my show and feel comfortable.
Yeah.
I want them to be able to tell their stories, promote the hell out of their shit. And sometimes I forget to ask them, hey, how's your day going? How have you been? Mm-hmm. And Brian from Talking Shit, which I hope he's watching, always rags on me for that. He's like, well, we ask that all the time. And I'm like, that's your fucking show. I said, I'd fucking say it. And then Mark would be texting me, the fucking keyboard warrior that he is from Florida, the little asshole, would be like, fucking, why did you take something we did on our show? And it's like, because Brian fucking shit on me for not doing it.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'm wearing a Talking Shit show. Talking Shit. Fucking Jesus Christ. I'm wearing a Talking Shit shirt, which if anyone wants to buy one, go check out Talking Shit podcast or youtube.com/@talking and you may be able to pick up one of these lucky shirts. Not many supplies out there, but Mark was very happy that I always promote his shit, because let's be honest, that fucking asshole couldn't promote my shit if he even tried.
Nice. No,
I love Mark.
You always look back at an interview or like I told the guys, I was like, when we started getting guests and we have guests, I said, look, I don't want to do the normal bullshit. I don't want to do the oh, so where'd you go to college at? And where'd you blah 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 blah. Like obviously we have questions.
Yeah.
But I want to make our guests feel comfortable. I want them to come in and hang like a hangout, And yeah, I would love to have a do-over with Matt James, the lead singer of Blacktop Mojo. It was a good interview. We had a good time. But I was so super nervous for that interview.
Yeah.
Because again, I'm such a huge fan of their music and of the band that I was really nervous. And then like the connection issues, I had some on my end, Matt had some on his end because he was literally on a tour bus, and Jeff's a jackass. So I would like to do that over again. Because I think if I had to do over, it would be so much better than what it was. But you just never know what you're going to get with a guest. Like you said, we've been fortunate. We haven't had any dickhead guests on our show. But it's going to happen eventually, and it's just how you handle yourself and how you get through it and try to make the best of it. And in the same sense, for me, I think it's really cool. If somebody wants to invite me on their show and have me on their show, that's
definitely. I mean, it's an honor. It is.
That somebody's like, okay, we know how this jackass is. We've seen his show. We're gonna go ahead and take a chance and bring him up. Like, I went on the Q for You podcast with those guys, and they're a little bit more, they're goofballs, a little bit more laid back. And I come on there, and I'm hell on wheels, and I'm like, all right, I got to try to behave myself. Let me tone it down just a little bit until I see the green light and see how they act. I try to see how, I can change the way I am depending upon the show. We've got a couple friends of ours that do shows, and I've been on there, and I know that they don't curse and they don't do this or that. So I'm like, all right, I try really hard not to curse. And I try not to be as crazy as I normally am just because that's not their style. So you have to be able to adapt and change because, if I get the reputation of being some fucking lunatic on every show I go on, and if that's not their cup of tea, then they're gonna be like, well, we like the guy. He's cool. His show's cool, but he ain't got no sense in his head. He don't know how to act. He ain't got no manner.
Yeah.
So
great. We got the Sam Kissinger of fucking podcast here. Or the Sam Kennison, that's his name. Oh my god, that day that I came on your show, which next time you guys have me on, or if you have me guest host one night, maybe I just come in and say, howdy do, fuckers. I mean, it is the thing, and a lot of people are like you said, you see me as timid sometimes, but it's like once I get to know the show, just like what you were saying, then it's just like, ooh, okay, I can work with this.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on a show one time where I felt like they were church people. So then I'm just like, well, there goes part of my, dialogue.
Yeah.
And I was just I was talking about how Sam Kennison one time had a thing on SNL as a guest host where they weren't going to allow him to say a joke about Jesus on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm getting into it, and I'm like, and the people said when Jesus was up on the cross, nailed to the cross, well, he didn't have to die. And Jesus says, yeah, well, grab a ladder and get me down from here. And the look on their faces, their mouths were so agape open. I'm like, do you want me to leave? And they're like, I think we're going to wrap it up here. And I'm like, but we're only 5 minutes in the show. And they're like, yeah, well, we're kind of religious. And I'm like, fuck. And so I messaged them. I'm like, I am so sorry. It's literally a joke. Like, I'm not trying to be, I believe in God, and all that shit. And they're like, no, you were fine. You're fine. They're like, just please lose this number and never contact us again. It's just like, okay. And I've been on a few shows like that where it's just like you read the room wrong.
Yep.
And like the host was talking shit about me, so I'm like, okay, dude, I'm gonna steal your fucking wife when you least expect it, and she's gonna have your kids are gonna be calling me daddy before you know it. And the guy literally kicked me out of the thing. And I watched the stream, and he's like, yeah, I'm never having that some bitch on here. How dare he say that? And I was in his comments, and I'm like, dude, you were talking shit about me. I thought we were cool, and you turned into an entitled pussy.
Yeah.
And he's like, moderator, get him out of here. He's telling lies. And it's just like, I was watching the more comments, and the people in the comments were just railing him.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, so you can tell a joke, but you can't take one. And he's just like, fine, I'm done with this stream. And it was only like a 20-minute stream that turned into like only 15 minutes. And I'm just like, really, dude, you lost your shit just because I was dishing it back to you. And the guy's like, no, you weren't. You were going dark, man. You were going dark. And I'm like, dude, you're talking about fucking one of my cousins.
Yeah.
And I said, but I can't touch your wife and your kids. And he's like, well, that's not the same thing. And I'm just like, dude, we were bullshitting with each other. And he's like, well, I'm not going to have you on the show. A month later, he comes back. He's like, can you be on my show? I'm like, fuck you, dude. No.
Man, yeah, no, yeah. That's one of the things that we, look, we're going to dish it out, but you better believe that we can take it just as well as we can give it, so hopefully people are the same way. And not everybody, and again, nonsensical nonsense is not everybody's cup of tea. We understand. We're more like a 100-year aged bourbon. It's hard to swallow.
We're more like fine wine. We're the ones that throw the wine out the fucking window and be like, ooh, whiskey.
Yeah. We're fermented fruit on the ground. We're tough to swallow. All right, we understand that. But
all I could think of is almost Heroes when the guy gives Chris Farley's character a little bit of a drink, and then he's like, "Hey, get your own," fucking drinks the whole bottle.
Yeah, I understand. I understand that we are. Look at the title of the goddamn show. It's nonsensical nonsense, man. For the love of God. It's nonsensical nonsense. It is what it is. I mean, Jeff and I went on a rant in the early stages of the show about our funerals and how, and if you guys want to go back through, there's over 300 episodes, but if you go back through and find the We Put Fun in Funeral episode about how when Jeff dies, he wants a Viking funeral. I'm going to run into the church with a Molotov cocktail and chuck it at his coffin. I want to be stuffed. So Jeff's going to pull up with a big Build-A-Bear stuffing machine and wrap a tow cord from a winch on a truck around my legs and drag me out of the church and just shove this Build-A-Bear stuffing tube up my ass. Proceed to stuff me with Build-A-Bear stuffing. We did a whole 2 hours, whatever, talking about this. Just crying, laughing. We were having so much fun. We were laughing our asses off. But for the normal person, they would listen. What is wrong with these two guys? But then the other people that are like us, they were laughing their asses off the whole time when they listened to the episode.
My wife, or no, someone in my wife's family one time, they're like, do you want a lot of people at your funeral? I'm like, fuck no. I'm like, I hope when people come to my funeral, I hope they kiss my bare ass.
Yep.
And one of the people trying to mess with me, they're like, well, aren't you afraid? And I'm like, what? And they're like, well, if you bury your bare ass and you want people to kiss it, aren't you afraid someone's gonna be like, hey, maybe he wants me to fuck it?
Yeah, there's
like, you're talking truth. Now you make me want to get cremated.
Yeah, I mean, it is 2023. I mean, Stranger Things, that's kind of the norm anymore. You just, hey,
there was a TikTok, I shit you not, that actually had something like that where it had the thing where the person did the narration while they're playing video games or whatnot, and they're like, low key went to a funeral. The dude thought it was a chick, and it turned out to be his own uncle.
Oh, shit.
And in the comments, all you saw was, so the dude's an uncle fucker?
Uncle fucker. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, hey, we've done shit like, we confessing our love to Ryan Reynolds and how much we love Ryan
Oh
Reynolds
my god, I would have loved to have been on that one.
and Kevin Costner, and then we like hashtag fuck Blake Lively. I mean, we Jeff and I come up with the most random, crazy shit.
Fuck.
And we start laughing our asses off, and we just run with it. Like Wednesday night with Spunky or Dusty Spunk was our NASCAR driver, and we were coming up with all these how the car was going to be painted and the sponsors for Dusty Spunk, the NASCAR driver. Just so many weird ass things, but we were having fun with it. Yeah,
Oh, shit.
it's childish, it's immature, it's ignorant as fuck. But at the end of the day, we're having fun. We're not hurting anybody. And if you don't like it, don't listen. I mean, that's the bottom line. Just don't fucking listen. If you don't like it at the end of the day, nobody's forcing you, unless, as we tease, our show is used in Guantanamo Bay for torture tactics. They just put us on repeat and until the prisoners tell them what they want to hear.
I was so glad that when me and my friend Bryant one time we were talking about something when we were playing video games, fucking then Mark came in. He's like, "Hey, you guys want to play a game? It's kind of like Cards Against Humanity, but it's, you get a scene from a random movie, and then you have to fill in the scene." And Mark's just like, Mark sees a bunch of little people walking around, and I'm like, "Oh yes." And Mark's like, "Steven, I swear to fucking God, you do it." And he's live on Twitch. And as soon as he fucking seen what I put on there, he's like, "Okay, everyone, if you want to know who did this is Steven. He has his own Twitch channel. You can fucking get him canceled." And I'm like, "Mark, every time they tell him he's late for the lollipop kill." And Alyssa's sitting there laughing, and she's like, "Mark, when he's trying to have sex with his wife, but finds out that he's too short." And I'm like, "And you're saying I'm going to hell?"
Yeah.
But yeah, anytime like you want to play video games or anything, I'm down, dude.
What system do you have?
Xbox.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Well,
Which is probably what I'm gonna do after I'm done with this. I'm probably gonna go live on Twitch doing Texas Chainsaw.
Nice. I'll have to get with you here in the next week or so and about having you back on the show. But
fuck yeah, man.
what the hell is my gamer tag? Actually, why the hell am I even scratching my head wondering? I have Xbox on my phone.
I was about to say you could message it to me after this too, so that some random fucking fuckwad isn't like, "Oh, I'm gonna go on there and fuck with them." Because I hate to tell you people, if you hear our gamer tags and you think you're gonna come in there and we're gonna be all fucking subdued, no.
Yeah, I
Especially with a game called What the Dub, which can turn into a fucked up game. It's like Cards Against Humanity, but it's on Twitch, and a lot of people play it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ever get into a party with me, Bryant, Alyssa, Mark, Nacho, aka Paul, the dirty Texan as we call him, oh my God, if you ever play What the Dub with us, just know we do. And I don't care if anyone's streaming it, I will go dark.
Nice. Hell yeah.
Like there's one scene of a guy getting hung, and I'm like, me after having sex with some of my ex-girlfriends, and fucking Mark's just like, "Jesus Christ."
Yeah, what the hell?
And of course, Mark will always talk shit about me when it comes up to like a girl slapping a man in the face, and he'll be like, "Alyssa, every time Steven asks for a blowjob or something," and it's just like, really?
What the hell?
I actually burned my wife on one time. I can't remember what the scene was, and I'm like, me when I tell my wife to shut the fuck up.
Nice.
And it showed a guy like shaking a woman, and I'm like, me when I tell my wife to shut the fuck up.
Oh yeah.
That's probably the one that's gonna get me canceled.
Yeah.
That or else they had like one Ku Klux Klan one, and I'm just like, oh my God, no. And Mark's like, "Steven, I'm streaming on Twitch," and I'm like, I'm sorry, Mark. And I'm like, I put in there the Klan, God, Adolf Hitler was sure. Well, no, I'm not gonna say it live, but in the game, it kind of set it up. But no, and Mark's just like, you did not just say that, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of did.
Yeah.
But,
So the oh shit.
and
Right up Jeff's alley.
what another person said, gee, Adolf Hitler sure was misunderstood. And I'm just like, oh my fucking God, no, you did not just say that. And he's just like, well, I'm not streaming. I'm not a podcast or anything. Fuck that shit.
Yeah. Fuck all that shit.
But yeah, usually I'm the butt of the joke, or if there's like a little person like Wizard of Oz thing on there, I always have to tell Mark jokes on that one.
I'm assuming he's
well, he's like 5 foot something, but you wouldn't tell from like seeing him on thing. And one time he's like, Steven, you know what? You're lucky I can't steal your wife. I'm like, Mark, you'd need a step ladder to fuck my wife. And even at that, I don't think your 1-inch Peter is gonna fucking satisfy this woman.
right.
But all right, I think I'm gonna get off here. I'm gonna kind of wind down, play some video games.
Yeah, I still have show prep to do for tonight. I got to get some videos downloaded and all that fun stuff. Grab me something to eat and
Yeah, I'm fucking hungry as fuck right now too. I hear you.
For an hour or I got what, hour and a half before.
Anything you want to promote?
Just feel free to check us out. Nonsensical Nonsense Podcast. We're on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We do go live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturday, 7 p.m. ish Eastern time over on YouTube. You guys come hang out. Get in the chatters box. We love interacting with the chatters box. We have so much fun, especially when they're joining into the conversation and all that jazz. Yeah, you can do that. And then you can see me times a week.
Yeah, and who knows? You might even see me every once in a while, and they're just talking shit with them. Or you know what? The link will be in the description to their channel. They're a bunch of great guys. Well, maybe not so much Jeff. Jeff's kind of a fucking asshole, but he's our asshole, as we always.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm stuck with Jeff. I've tried to get rid of him for 25 years. He's like a foot fungus. He's like herpes. Just when you think it goes away.
I was about to say, we did an interview one time, and someone's like, "God, you two bicker like a married couple." I'm like, "No, Mark's more like an STD. I can't get rid of."
Yeah, that's exactly what Jeff is. I love Jeff to death, though. He's one of my friends in life. We've been friends for, like I said, 25, 26 years. And he's one of those guys that, we talk about any and everything. It is one of those rare friendships where, we every night we end the show, if we end a phone call or a text message or whatever, we always tell each other we love each other. It's just one of those things. He drives me absolutely fucking insane 99% of the time, but I love the guy, and we have a good time when we do the show. And like I said, we're not everybody's cup of tea, but check it out. Give us a chance. You might like us. And like I said, Steven, I do want to get with you here in the next week or so about having back on and trying to figure something out that works for you. Obviously, we don't want to tear in too much to your schedule, but if there's a particular day of the week that you're available and
At
you want
any time, man. I mean, I gotta try and get back into, because I feel bad that I didn't do a pre-recorded episode this week, but with shit going on and then figuring out what's gonna keep going on with college. But like I told Liz, I said by the first week of September, if the student loan shit hasn't been figured out yet or whatever, I said I'll probably just drop out and go find a job. I mean, there's tons around here. It's just trying to find the one that I'm gonna like doing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you keep doing your show, man. Like I said, you got a good thing going. You do a really good show.
Like it's more background shit. Like people look at the cross and they're like, "But Steven, you said shit about Jesus nailed to the cross," and it's just like, no, I was just copying a joke from a famous comedian that's no longer with us. And I'm gonna get some more shit like posters and stuff in here.
Yeah, I'm just in my bedroom, like
Same here.
earlier when we went and looked at that house, one of the things we were looking at was different areas of the house that I could actually build out a little studio and
Yeah.
create it behind me and stuff like that. Right now it's just my dresser and it's a fucking mess because we normal people and we come in from work and I throw my hats up there or whatever, I'll, but no, like I said, man, just because you become more, if and when if you become more of an active member of our show, you don't have to do all 3 nights and still do your show, man. I'd strongly encourage it.
Oh yeah, I'm going to.
Tony does a music show. Yeah, it's and
I
then
always knew Tony was a weird guy.
yeah, he does like hip hop and R&B is kind of his forte. But then he also does during football season, which should be kicking back up here relatively soon.
Yeah.
Belt Kings Fantasy Football.
Okay. Yeah.
Which you'll see me on there. You'll see our buddy Brian. Ted will be on there. Fireman Rich is on there. All outside of Brian, but Ted hosts Late Night Parent. Fireman Rich does morning coffee with Fireman or with Rich, and then Tony's got and as soon as I have the time, the guys have talked me into bringing back my solo show, the Glick Show, which I'm slowly doing. I've got like 3 or 4 episodes of the Glick Show, but I'm like, at this point, I'm already doing 1 to 2 shows a week.
Yeah.
Why am I going to do a 3rd show and just call it the Glick Show when I can just rebrand nonsensical, be like nonsensical nonsense / Glick Show,
The Glick Show featuring the nonsensical nonsense.
Yeah, and all the social for the Glick Show because I'm too lazy to create brand new social media for that. I've already got social media for the podcast and I can't keep up with that.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's like I'll look on there and it'll be like I'll be at like 220 and all of a sudden it'll go down to like 210 or something. It's just like I want to go on there and be like, okay, you fuckers, you follow me. What are you gonna expect? That I'm gonna show my dick on the fucking thing, or I'm gonna fucking be like half these women on TikTok or Kick that like do like ASMR ear licking fucking things?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't. A little piece of advice: don't let the numbers and the views and stuff consume because then at the end of the day, it not only does it consume you and eat away at you, but it starts to chew at your confidence level and stuff like that. But then that becomes your whole personality.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
When people are, my last episode, I just posted an episode and I got 500 views, I got 500 listens, and I have 5,000 followers and blah, blah, blah. And then they come back and it's like, I have 4,999 followers. Fuck you guys.
Oh, no, I'd never do that. I always tell my fans I treat them like I treat anyone else. Well, most people, but yeah, it's so weird. And like Alyssa's like, well, she's like, well, if you do end up leaving college and then go finding a job, what's going to happen with podcasts? I'm like, podcast is my fucking career. I never said I'm looking for a career outside of it.
Yeah, right.
I said once it fully takes off to where, whatever happens, and, I can go to some of these con conventions and all that. I said, I 100% would do it full time. And that's what I want to do. But at the same time, it's hard when you're married. It's hard when you're trying to start a family. And me and my wife have been trying. And, it sucks when that thing never says pregnant, but at the same time, like I always tell my wife, I'm like, it will one day. And I said, when it does, I feel bad for people that are going to have to deal with those kids, because if they're anything like me when I was a kid, them kids are going to have the born to raise hell right stitched on their forehead.
Yeah. When the time is right, you said you're seeing that pregnancy test coming back negative, stuff like that, not pregnant. When the time is right, she'll get pregnant, and it'll probably be expected.
Oh, definitely. And she's like, well, are you gonna like not announce it on your podcast? I'm like, fuck no, I'm gonna announce that shit, and when the kid's born, I'm gonna probably be like, hey, yeah, that's my little bundle of joy, and people always get kick out of me because I'm like, I'd fucking just be like, if I hear my kid crying, I don't care if I'm filming a podcast or not. I will get up, fucking walk, and take care of my child. I hate that when you get into like a lobby with people and all of a sudden you hear the kid constantly like fucking crying. I get to the point where it's like, dude, take care of your fucking child. The game is still going to be here when you get back.
No, we've a friend of ours, Tim, him and another friend of ours, Gemma, they host the mental health hour. He's got a little baby. And I remember when she was born, and he's always been, I mean, if she started crying, he's been on our show several times, and he would just go get her. And of course, all of us guys on the show just turn into a bunch of sissies. Oh, you get the little baby. But I was watching their show Wednesday night before our show because they go live Wednesdays on Twitch at 6. And I was watching it while I was getting ready for my show, and she was doing something, but he went and got her. And I couldn't believe how big she'd gotten since she was just a little tiny baby the last time I seen her. And, and my buddy Connor, who he's going to become a member of the show. He's always wanted to. He's just active duty military. Now he's got some health issues, and they're getting ready to, he's going to be getting discharged from the military, and then they're going to be moving. And I told him, I said, dude, in the meantime, come on the show when you're available.
Yeah.
Once you get discharged and moved and they're coming back to Ohio. So once you get all squared away, then we can look at that full-time being on the show every episode. I was like, but right now you got to take care of yourself and your family. But his kids are constantly, he's got 2 little boys and then they got a little baby girl. He's had the kids on there. The kids have run in. Jeff's kids are run in. My kids are constantly, when they're here, in and out of the show. I mean, Tony and my oldest daughter do a whole freaking dance breakdown. But my kids are a lot older, so, it's a little bit easier compared to having a baby. I couldn't imagine trying to do a show and have a newborn in the house. But I would have been the same way. I just went and got him and been like, all right, we're going to do the show. Plug your ears, little baby Glick, because daddy's an animal.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Also, check out the Nonsensical Nonsense podcast. Talk shit about Jeff on there if you want. Glick and Tony do it enough, but Jeff's a good guy. They're all good guys over there. They're on all forms of social media. They're also on YouTube. Links will be down in the description. And I'll talk to you later, man.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later. We'll be back in an hour and a half, actually. I will.
Yeah, I'm done with this shit for today.
Yeah, I got to do another show. Hey, man, it was good talking to you. It was good seeing you again. I'll reach out to you this week and see what, when you're available and what it looks like for you coming on the show. Get you on there a little more. Hang out with it. All right?
All right, man. See you later.
Hey, man. Much love, man. Deuce.
Yep. And that was Glick from the Nonsensical Nonsense podcast, which, again, they're on all forms of social media. Also on YouTube at youtube.com/@nonsensicalnonsense. And go subscribe to them. Go like their content. And if you haven't yet, please also like, subscribe, comment, and hit that notification icon for the Steven Gervais and Friends podcast. We truly do appreciate everything the listeners do for us and even putting up with us. So we're at 84. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers. Let's do it. Let's get out there. Let's subscribe. Let's spread the word. And also go check out Talking Shit on YouTube. Go check out the Nonsensical Nonsense podcast on YouTube. Go check out Night Watch Zone. Go check out Bucket of Chum, the Broken System podcast. And there's many more out there. I know I'm forgetting some, but go check out a lot of the great shows. I'll try and have them in the description. But thank you all for joining us. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next time. Nope, wrong one. I'm sorry, I'm an amateur at doing this.